Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. Olivia, could you lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a consent agenda, the minutes from January 12th, 2017, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Any comments or issues with the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
I'm gonna abstain. That's right.
One abstention, please. Mike McGinn was not here at the last meeting. All right, we have two sections of the meeting, one at the beginning, one at the end for interested citizens. Are there any interested citizens who would like to come forward to speak with the school committee? Seeing none, we'll jump right into recognition. We're going to start off with our student rep report. Olivia.
Sounds good. So this Friday, if you're a high school student, you get to go to a dance. And if you're not a high school student, you can go to Sugar Lane's Winterfest this Friday. I'm not going to brag, I made 4 cakes, so I highly recommend, and they're all very good. February 1st, both the elementary schools are participating in Global Play Day, which also I did a little recon because I didn't want to study for my anatomy exam. It looks really fun. Like, you just get to go to school and, like, play for 6 hours. Like, can we do that at the high school? Please. Well, we can do it at school committee. I'll bring Scrabble next time.
Keep working on them.
February 2nd is the student staff basketball game at Russell Street. Last Friday at the middle school, they had their 7th and 8th grade dance, and over 100 7th and 8th graders attended. And the middle school also had a successful volleyball night on Thursday the 19th. And the high school, as I said before, has mid-years this week and Monday.
Good luck.
Yeah. 3 down,
Excellent.
4 to
Was it
go.
only supposed to be till this Friday, and then
Yeah.
somebody canceled school and screwed everybody up?
Trying to help them out.
Well, some kids would call it a help, while other kids would say, I wanted to be done.
All the people that had papers instead of finals really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
All the people that still had tests, that wasn't so much of a great hit.
Well, it's too bad you don't
Believe
do
me,
it.
I didn't want to do it, but sometimes it's necessary.
It's too bad you don't do it for the ratings.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, every time I close school, my Twitter numbers go up. There is a direct correlation.
Social media strategy.
Exactly. Other recognitions this evening, the new pizza place in town, it's been here for a little while now, Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza has approached us a few weeks ago. And we're going to be doing a fundraiser with them during the week of February 19th to 23rd. There's a flyer in our package that we'll be advertising. And it's really nice to offer something like this that's going to benefit all of our schools rather than just focusing on one school. The proceeds will go to extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So thank you, a big thank you to the manager over at Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza. We are about to embark on our second SEI endorsement course. It's mandatory for recertification for staff. And we had a great turnout first semester. Second semester, we're anticipating an equally strong turnout. I talked about this before, but it's always important to bring up these things again. Through the bringing of an instructor to our district that was certified to teach this course, we really were able to save, in terms of professional development, close to $33,000. And that's significant when you consider the cost of that mandated certification. So we're really happy that we did that. We can't do it beyond this year, but I would say most of our staff who would require the endorsement when looking at the ELL students coming through our school system, I think we're in good shape. There'll be a few that are going to have to go somewhere else to take it. But I'd like to extend a thank you to Dr. Ajamian as well for making this happen. It was a lot of work, a lot of forms to fill out.
I had guidance from the superintendent.
Well, thank you. Olivia talked about Global Play Day, and Shaker Lane and Russell Street School are taking part in this event. Last year, 177,000 students took part in the event, covering 6 continents, and I'm sure the numbers are going to go up drastically this year. We've had at times conversations, more at the leadership table, about how a child's day has changed over time. And something called self-directed play seems to be decreasing as we go on. And self-directed play is a very important component of child development. So by bringing something like this to our school district, we're reminding ourselves as educators and our community as well, it's important that we give our students an opportunity to go out there and figure out what they want to do in terms of games they want to play, or that self-initiation rather than being directed is an important part of development. There's an attachment that I included in the package. It's a TED Talk by Peter Gray. He's a researcher at Boston College. We don't have time to show it tonight, and it is a little educationally oriented in terms of terminology, but if you have a chance, I'd recommend that you spend a few minutes. It's about 17 minutes long, so if you have 17 minutes, I think it's worthwhile taking a look at.
Can I just make a quick comment about that? I think it's a great initiative. As someone who's been involved in youth sports and coaching at the high school level, it's become apparent to those of us that are involved that the level of play, the skill, the imagination, the IQ of ball players is going down across the board. Every town is seeing it. And when we talk about it, one of the things that comes to mind to us is when we were younger, we learned more on our own than we ever did with coaches or parents instructing us, because you just get the hours and hours. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours that are required to become an expert at something. The 10,000 hours we got, I wouldn't say I became an expert at basketball, but we got on our own, in the playgrounds, in our driveways, in the park, wherever it was, and that's going away precipitously and rapidly. And I would like to see this, it's great that it's happening in the school, but I would like to see us take it a step further and make sure that we let the parents know that this talk is out there, and if we can engender a conversation. And I would like to see this as a first step, and if we can talk to Park and Rec about using their resources to try to get a community-wide dialogue on how important informal play is for kids, and try to let the parents understand that, and the coaches too, you have to let go, and you just got to let them get out there on their own. And it can be traumatic in the short term, but it will be very beneficial in the long term.
I appreciate you saying that, Mike. I mean, it is important. And it's been a long time since I've pulled into a road in a town or a subdivision and come across kids playing field hockey or playing street hockey on the street, for example, or in parks playing soccer or football without an adult supervising them. So I think it does warrant a larger conversation as we vision toward the future. So again, thank you. The Lowell Sun did a great job of covering the events of our robotics team. I know we have an update this evening, but I wanted to acknowledge the fact that somebody involved with the robotic team took the time to contact the paper, and thank you very much for doing that. And it's really nice to see that kind of coverage in our local papers. So thanks again for taking the time to do that. The high school is going to have a parent and staff event coming up on February 6th. It's titled, a documentary titled Most Likely to Succeed. And it really takes a look at school systems and what do they look like during the Industrial Revolution, and how have they started to change as a result of transforming into an innovation society. And it's some good thought to process as we move forward. I'm an advocate of interdisciplinary learning and project-based learning. And this is one way to further engage our community in those discussions. Finland has just announced a new project in terms of how they're going to educate students. And they're actually going to get rid of course titles in their schools, and that's kind of extreme, because I always believe that there needs to be a foundational base before you go into project-based learning. But they're eradicating the titles of subjects, and they're moving very quickly into a total project-based learning approach to educating their youth. So it's going to be interesting to look at that from a distance and see how they're progressing over the next 4 or 5 years. And if I have a chance, I might even go over there and take a look at it sometime, but it will be interesting. Hopefully, and we will continue to move forward in that direction, of course not neglecting the importance of developing that academic foundation before students will go into those kinds of activities. I have some pamphlets that I'd like to hand out to the school committee this evening, and please pass the word out that we are having this evening, and we're hoping to have a packed house. And that brings me to the end of my acknowledgements.
Thank you. All right, we have several presentations tonight. The first one is, we have an Eagle Scout presentation. Zach Corelli is proposing to do a project to benefit the school system and needs permission from the school committee. All right, Zach.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Eagle Scout project is kind of the culmination of one's scouting career, where you take all of the leadership expertise, the leadership that you learned through your scouting career, and you lead a group of people in some project that benefits a community. For me, I've chosen to build a shed to house snow blowers at the high school, since they currently have no place to house them. So that's a picture of what the shed will look like. It's fairly close. The one I'm proposing, as noted in the caption, won't have windows, since there won't need to be somebody in it for a long time. Next slide.
Sorry.
So it is a construction project, so there's a bunch of things I'm going to need, hammers, drills, lumber, etc., etc. In order to get the snowblowers into the shed, I'm going to have to build a ramp, since lifting up a snowblower, even like 6 inches, is not going to be very fun. So that's going to need more lumber, more nails. And then in order to build this, I'm most likely going to need to get a building permit. However, I'm unable to do that until I get approval from the school committee. And then I have some cost estimates. They're very, very rough estimates. The shed itself should cost around $2,000, excuse me. And then I said $200 of other spending, which is food for my work crew and things like that. And so I have some paperwork that I need to do, such as this paperwork, and I already saw my troop committee about this and have been approved there. Then once I get all of my paperwork approval, I can begin fundraising for the project and actually finding out where my money is going to come from, how much I need to raise myself, what I can be given by assorted associations and companies. And then, so, yeah.
Steve?
Is that supposed to be up there?
I'm sorry? What happened?
I don't know.
Just put the red, press the red button.
It's the TV.
Oh, it's the TV.
She's gonna get it.
What happened? It's not what's on my screen.
Is it touch?
Press agree.
It's the TV.
Yeah, it's on the TV, not on the.
Oh.
Oh, wait.
There we go.
There it is.
Oh, all right, so it's gone now.
Okay.
Oh, there's it.
I don't know where it went. All right, well, keep talking, I'll find it. I don't know where it went.
The mystery. Goodness.
Basically, I've come here to get approval to begin construction on this project, which I plan to start hopefully sometime in March or April, once the snow is cleared up, and hope to finish around summer vacation.
Awesome.
Where are we going to put it? Do you know where it's going to be located?
It's going to be put in the fenced-in area near the custodial entrance.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the lower entrance down near the generator and the recycle containers and,
And how excited is the custodial staff about this particular project?
well, the fire department, I think, will be more excited because we're getting the snow blowers out of their building. But
Very happy.
So there are multiple constituencies. That's good to know.
I've got two quick questions. How did you come up with that idea, and how can people donate to?
I came up with the idea. I sort of just asked around in my troop a bunch of, there's a lot of people that know places that have projects that need to be done. So there's a list, and then you can branch out a little bit. So I went to the school, and, sorry, what was the second question?
How can people, I think you need to do some fundraising, right? So how will people be able to donate to you?
I'm not sure how the donation itself is going to work, but my plan is to go around to companies like Littleton Lumber and ask for either money or materials,
Right.
since people are,
We can help you too, Zach, by getting messages out to
Yeah.
our weekly flyer. We'll work together on that.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, that would definitely work. And you can also approach Rotary
right.
as well, so.
Any other questions?
Mike stole my questions, but thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
We've talked about a couple of, I feel like we always talk about sheds at Shaker Lane. So it's nice to add one and to have it by a student, I think is pretty
See, it
special.
works. So Zach will do a shed thing for the high school, and I'll do something for Shaker Lane, so it's balanced.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the Eagle Scout project to build a shed at the high school.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Zach, thank you, and thank you in general to the Boy Scout troop. I think we've had, every year, I think, for the past 4 or 5 years, we've had at least one project and one scout
That's two
coming
this year,
forward.
right?
Yeah, so it's really adding up, and it's good to know that you guys are thinking about us, and when you're reaching out to us, we really appreciate it, and we're happy to facilitate as many projects as you guys can come towards us with. And Olivia's doing a great project too, so it's not just the Boy Scouts, it's a lot of youth community groups that are reaching out, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much, good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Can you build football fields?
how much?
All right, next we have PTA. Katie Bonner is here to give us an update on how active they've been lately.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to come and do a mid-year update. I'm Katie Bonner. I'm here as an official PTA representative. I actually am a rep at the middle school and lead rep at Shaker Lane. So we've been, as usual, very busy through the first part of the year. At the executive board level, so this is the level that covers the entire town, the executive board worked with the LEA on the question 2 ballot through the fall, providing support to some forums that the LEA was hosting. They are working directly with the LEA to try and figure out a way to get some members to attend our monthly executive board meetings to try and facilitate that dialogue and have some direct discussions. And yeah, we finally have been able to update our PTA Amazon Smile information to accept donations that way, and any donations that come in through Amazon Smile to the PTA will get distributed evenly among all 4 schools. At the high school, they hosted a fall SAT boot camp, which had 13 participants. They worked on, through the fall, decorating the new lactation room off the staff room to make it welcoming and comfortable, a place that can be useful to staff members. They funded busing for 2 different history field trips. They purchased 50 copies of the student-written book Rubber Soul by Hannah Lord for the LHS Book Club. They hosted the first trimester student recognition breakfast in December. They are, for upcoming events, they will be sending 5 female student members to the Girls STEM Summit in the spring, so they will be sponsoring 5 costs of the tickets to go to that. Trivia night is scheduled for March 31st. And I have a specific note. Would love to see a school committee team as well as a central office team Shaker Lane has sent a team every year, so there's that challenge.
What's
The
the date on
31st?
that?
March 31st.
March 31st.
It's a
Is it
really
a
fun
Thursday?
night.
We always get recognized for something.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What is it?
Trivia. Yeah.
And the last item for the high school I have is they're working with the LHS staff to put together a financial literacy event for students to be held on an early release day. And I believe they work on hosting the college visitation day. They participate in that too in the spring. For the middle school, they did their first annual appeal this fall, where you just ask for direct donations rather than holding fundraisers, and they were able to raise $1,800, which will be used to fund supplies and programs for the classrooms. They also had a table at the Holiday Bazaar with 3 different baskets that were raffled off and raised over $800 that way. They, so far this year, have funded the 6th grade archaeological dig, the 7th grade Earth View project, a 7th grade history project, funding a website that allows students to create multimedia timelines as they work through their history projects. Includes captions, pictures, videos, quizzes, and other ways to demonstrate their knowledge as they build this. For 8th grade, they've helped fund the book, copies of the book The Help. They have hosted so far 2 6th grade nights out, which have been hugely popular. Out of a class of 120, well over 100 kids have attended each time. The 3rd one scheduled for April. Then the week before the winter break, they hosted a breakfast for the staff to help relieve some of the stress that happens that last week of school. And then coming up on March 16th, the 2nd annual cornhole tournament. And on May 10th, staff appreciation. Again, school committee teams for the cornhole tournament would be greatly appreciated.
What day is that, 16th?
March 16th. At Russell Street. So in November, they hosted bingo night, which raised more than $1,100, which was fantastic. In December, they had book fair during the conferences just before the holidays, which also went really well. They were able to buy all books off the teacher wish list for all staff and the librarian out of the proceeds raised from that. They are doing the very popular random acts of snacking for the teachers, which includes a snack cart that goes around to the staff with themed snacks available in the teacher's room. And they will do a staff appreciation lunch in May. They have used some of the funds to renew the subscription to Brain Pop, which is a subscription shared with Shaker Lane. So Russell Street and Shaker Lane have done that together. For cultural enrichment, they're doing a drumming program and a Museum of Science program on sound for 3rd grade. Potato Hill Poetry and Eyes on Owls for 4th grade. A Museum of Science program on weather, and a Birds of Prey program for 5th grade. They had done an annual appeal through the fall, which raised just over $3,000 to help fund all of that. Coming up, they have basketball night on February 2nd, so that's just next week. And their basket raffle and ice cream social is on April 6th. So that's Russell Street. And Shaker Lane. So through the fall, we had the fall book fair in September, which is also part of the back-to-school open house night, and that was very successful. We were able to, again, buy all of the wish list items for staff and specialists out of the proceeds from the book fair, as well as keep some profit, which will be used to fund cultural events through the spring. Both Russell Street and Shaker Lane published as a service at no cost to parents the directory of all families for families who opt in to be included. We did every other year we do a parent survey of funding priorities for how the PTA at Shaker Lane should be spending our money, and we do that every other year, and there haven't been any changes, but it's good to know that the decisions we make are in line with what parents are expecting us and want us to do. And then just yesterday, on the half-day, we hosted an open gym time at Boxborough Gymnastics Center for kids to go and spend some of their energy on a cold winter day. So far this year's a sampling of some of the things we funded. We have an upcoming Helen Keller performance for 2nd grade that's fantastic every year. Funded Brain Pop split with Russell Street. All sorts of science materials and supplies, such as the owl pellets that the 1st grade classes dig into and take apart. It's always a fun part of their science unit. A bunch of storage units for the 2nd grade science curriculum. Magazine subscriptions for students and families, different magazines at different grade levels based on what the staff feel is appropriate. We have Birds of Prey from Drumlin Farm coming in for 1st grade. There's a kindness and friendship-focused musical performance for kindergarten coming in. And I know there's a lot more going on, too. Upcoming events at Shaker Lane. In March, we have the Spring Book Fair. This is our 2nd book fair of the year. Last year was the first time we did a spring one, and it was very successful. We hold it during the week of conferences and kindergarten screening, and all proceeds from that book fair go directly to Julia Abruzzi in the library and the reading specialists for them to order new materials and supplies. Yearbook is coming along. Shaker Lane is the only school where PTA puts the yearbook together. All other schools, the students handle it. It's coming along and will be ready in time. We have Author Illustrator coming up in March, where we fund various authors, illustrators, performances for each grade level to honor Dr. Seuss's birthday and Author Illustrator. We are getting organized already for the incoming kindergarten class this fall and hoping to organize play dates over the summer so that all of the families and the students can get to know each other. And of course, as Olivia mentioned, tomorrow night is Winterfest and basket raffle. There are cakes being baked all over town tonight for Cakewalk, I can tell you. We have, as of this morning, 114 baskets in the basket raffle. The community has been incredibly generous, as they are every year, and it's always amazing. This is our one big fundraiser of the year, and it's always a lot of fun. So we would love to see everybody there tomorrow night, too, if you're not at the high school dance. Thank you.
That's excellent.
It's a longish presentation, but that's just a tribute to how much you guys are doing. So.
Wait till the end of the year.
Yeah, I know, I was gonna say, right, you're only halfway through, and, yeah. But again, as always, we appreciate it, and it is good to get it in the forefront, so that people don't start to take it for granted. So thank you for coming out, and we look forward to seeing you again in the school year.
Very busy groups, yeah, my goodness. It's a very impressive list of events and support that the PTA is providing.
We have amazing families and volunteers who make this all work.
That's great.
It's a very generous community, both in time and in donations.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that
Thank you.
with us.
Thank you.
All right, the next presentation is the first robotics team. And it looks like FIRST is like an acronym, am I correct?
Yes,
What
it's
is-
for inspiration and recognition of science and technology.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So I'm Brennan Crow. You might remember me from last time I presented a couple months ago.
I'm Zach Miller, and we're both seniors from Littleton High School participating in first year out at Littleton High School.
So as you know, last time we were here, we just gave you like a quick recap of our fundraising activities and what we've been doing to prepping for the build season, which started 2 weeks ago when we started designing and building our robot. So the build season is 6 weeks long, and we're into the 3rd week now, and we finished our design almost completely. The robot's almost completely CAD'ed, and we're going to be water jetting parts and actually cutting our materials next week once we have our mill up and running, or inspected to run. It's running, it's just not allowed to use it yet. So then we'll start actually building the robot we've designed, and it will be good. We also have people working on coding, and so we're really busy, and we have people working on other initiatives. making business plans and making presentations for the judges, because there's additional ways to score points in the competition besides just having a good robot. We meet about 30 hours a week, every day, 5 to 9 on Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 on Saturday, and 12 to 5 on Sundays. We have 10 plus students every day, and we have a total of like 30 students on the team, so there's some like change day to day of who's there, but yeah, we have very good participation, and we've been meeting quite a lot, and we've been getting a lot done. A lot of that thanks to our great mentors, D. Clark and Zach Temple. They've been instrumental in moving us forward in this. They're really great.
So a lot of people I talk to about FIRST, they'll always say like, oh, is your robot built yet? Because we're almost 3 weeks into the build season here, and it's only 6 weeks, so almost halfway through, but we don't have a robot yet. But the thing is, it takes more than that. It's these first 3 weeks, we're a little bit ahead of the curve, actually. We have the whole thing, like you said, CADed, and all that means is it's in computer animated design. So our whole robot, it exists, but it's in the virtual world at the moment. And to bring it to the real world, we need that mill. So we're waiting on that for Tuesday. Today we brought, you might have seen in our hands, these are some field elements from the game. The reveal was pretty interesting for us, especially as a first-year team. It was cool to see, and especially at the origin of FIRST in Southern New Hampshire University. But we'll be moving forward in the next 3 weeks, hopefully getting our robot in time for our programmers, like you mentioned, to get their stuff done and organized, and going pretty far in competition. So.
Yeah, so as Zach mentioned, we have field elements with us. This is one of the balls or fuel that we need to shoot into a basketball kind of hoop to score points, and that's a gear that we need to bring to a location in which it's put in an assembly which spins a rotor. But that's the basic design of the game, is collecting things and scoring faster than the opposing team can do that. And we've brought a couple of videos with us of us testing our design for our shooter for the balls. So in a match, you would go and collect the balls, and then they'd go into a hopper, and then you need to shoot them about 6 feet up from your robot. So we brought a video of testing our shooter design.
It's not very long, so watch it and we'll play it twice.
So this was the early prototyping. So as you see, it's a little bit inaccurate.
That's actually the second prototype of our shooter. The first one was run using a drill, actually.
Want to see it one more time, or is that good?
That's good.
Did we bring a second
I
video?
think there was one where there was a second, did I send you the second one?
This is the only one I got.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, well. I mean, that goes to show, like, just, that was our second prototype. We used a laser printer to cut out the shape. It was good enough. We used one of the actual motors we would use in the competition to spin it up. But it's the second prototype. It still had some bugs. We didn't have enough torque on the engine, so as you see, as the balls were flying in, they were slowing down towards the end because the engine couldn't get back up to speed fast enough to shoot them. So we needed to add a flywheel. And also, we were still experimenting with the curve on the rib that we were using to shoot it. We're probably going to use a similar rib to what we had there, but I think we're going to move it slightly outwards so we get slightly less compression on the ball. But yeah, it doesn't look perfect, but it will be perfect. It'll be awesome.
And that's just one of 4 prototypes we built. So we have the one for the shooter. Well, not 4 prototypes, but we built our shooter prototype there. We have a gear catcher, which we're going to use for these gears. We built the field parts for the rope we have to climb up in the end of the game, the place where we shoot the balls, and the place we deliver gears.
So all in all, we just wanted to show you that we have been busy and that we're doing good. So thank you very much.
All right, any questions, comments? So, do you have a question?
I have a comment that is just like, I am astounded by how much smarter than me you guys are. Like, I would be, I know I say it all the time, but I don't know how to do math and all that stuff. But I would be not know where to begin. Like, so many of the words you used, I know, like, generally what they are. But I'm shocked that, like, in the high school, that high school kids are able to.
You'd be great on the business plan, Mike.
I could maybe do that.
And he's a lawyer and he doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah, really impressive. Good job.
Thank you.
You guys said you had 30 kids. What grades? Are all grades represented in some
have-
capacity?
Kids from middle school through high school.
Yeah, we have a couple of 8th graders,
Okay.
and we have all 4 grades. We do have a higher percentage of seniors,
Sure.
but this is the first year that First is here, like in our town, I mean. And if we do well in the competition, which we are, I don't know, I'm very optimistic. Seriously, I wasn't going into the season, I'm very optimistic now. If we do well, it's going to get way more popular, and hopefully we'll get lots of freshmen and sophomores next year, and we'll build a younger team. Right now, we have a lot of seniors, but we have all 4 grades in the high school represented. Yes, we do.
You scouting the other teams to see?
That is part of it. That is part of it.
Will there be an opportunity for you guys like do a dry run at the high school that maybe we could get notice of, so that we could actually see it in action?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
Hopefully, so the build season ends, I think it's February 22nd, I have to double check that date. But basically, that's the last day we can work on the robot, and then we actually have to physically put it in a bag, and we can't work on it outside of competition. But hopefully on bag day, we'll have a fully functioning robot that we'll be testing, so that'd be a great day for people to come by.
Awesome.
And we'll be, shooting balls and scoring gears and climbing the rope, so we can definitely get you information on that and like what time would be good to come by and check everything out.
I saw a robotics competition on ESPN
Mhm.
this summer, and it was great. I mean, it was enthusiastic. There was a crowd. There was cheering. It was intense. It was, it was fast moving, and you could see that the people the participants were heavily invested in what was going on. You could see them rapidly trying to figure out how to do better and everything else. It was pretty cool. So good luck to that. I think you'll have.
Thank you very much.
They want the robots on their side when they become our overlords.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing exactly how it plays out.
I had a couple of questions. So when and where is the competition?
There are actually 3 competitions. We're going to start with the district, then regional, and then if we make it far enough, we'll go to the world championship. Is that right?
First one is
Yeah, the
in
first
southern
one's-
New Hampshire.
It's in Wyndham, New Hampshire. It's March 3rd to the 5th at Wyndham High School. And then we're competing at Bedford High School, New Hampshire, March 24th to 26th. And then if we do well enough at that event, we'll qualify for New England District Championship, which is held at UNH in early April. And then from there, we can qualify for the World Championship in St. Louis in late April. And they do provide special spots just for rookie teams, and I think we have a really great shot at winning the Rookie All-Star Award, which should get us to the World Championship. I don't have a doubt in my mind we'll be attending the World Championship.
Nice. That's the kind of confidence we want.
And she's been doing first since she was in high school, so she should know.
Yeah,
She should
Been on
know.
many
So-
national level teams.
How does the hoop stay static?
It does.
Okay.
We actually built all of that. It looks kind of crooked, but it's all right. It's the right height. It's the right measurements.
Students
It
threw
works
that
well.
together in like half an hour.
It looks
so-
better than what I could do.
We finished all the field parts in the first 5 or 6 days, I want to say. So we were really on it at the point. Yeah.
Yes, so that would stay static in the game, and we would drive our robot up to it, unload our hopper full of balls, and then score a bunch of points.
I don't remember if we mentioned, but the theme is actually Steam, like Steamworks. That's why we mentioned like it's just a wiffle ball, but they call it fuel. So what we're doing here is shooting balls into the high goal of a boiler per se. So this is supposed to be like coal or something that we're putting in a boiler to power our steam thing.
Oh, that's very cool. What's the gender split for the first team?
Brian knows these facts off the top of his head. The gender split for the team?
Yeah, I think we have about a third female. I know personally from my experience, girls are very intimidated of the robotics team. I know I was. So you have to ask them about 3 times as much as you have to ask boys to join. And so we're working on it to get more girls involved. Because once they get their foot in the door and they see that it's not this intimidating, scary world of engineering. They get really excited about it and really invested. So that's definitely part of our long-term plan to get more girls involved on the team, because it's a really good experience.
Excellent. And
This
I
is
think-
one of your advisors,
Yeah.
coaches? or
This is
something?
Dee. She's one of our
Hi.
awesome mentors.
And I think as a team, as you said, will grow over the next couple of years because it is in its first year. Hopefully that divide will close a little bit too. I think this is really cool what you guys are doing, and it's totally beyond me. It's beyond Mike. So if we are recent,
I'm allowed to say that about myself. You can't say
you already said it. I'm just referring to what you said earlier in the meeting. If this is, I mean, we're both recent LHS graduates who I think are, I'd like to think we're well equipped for the world. Is that okay? And if this is what LHS and sometimes the middle school is producing now, like, I don't know. Now I'm getting a little nervous.
I know, very impressive.
Well, I mean, the idea is not that you have to be some like engineering or math whiz to get started, and really we weren't. A lot of the, as you said, we used some pretty like high diction when we were talking, but we didn't really know any of that before we started either. It was really our coaches that brought us up to that level, and anybody can join. I'm not even planning on majoring in engineering in college. I'm doing this because I thought it was really fun. So it's not, I had no idea about a lot of this stuff going in either. It's really the learning experience. I had none of this going in, and now I can talk somewhat confidently about this kind of stuff. So that's the whole point anyway, is to get, especially with the freshmen and sophomores, getting them interested in this stuff and getting them educated in that sort of way so that they might be prospective engineers someday. And so
Engineering and programming are based more on the philosophy of thinking and solving problems than it is on, levers and angles and things like that. That's all, you can look that stuff up.
Mhm.
That's easy enough, especially in this day and age. But to train yourself to think, to solve the problem is much more of a philosophy aspect than it is on science and engineering.
And believe me, we definitely need that in some of the more humanities-based fields right now too.
Sure. Great. All right.
thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Talking the talk, let's see it.
I have a friend on the Needham team, and their team has been around for like 3 years now, and I think what she was saying is their gender gap is about 50-50, and they have their only high school. They don't have a middle school engineering club like Littleton does, but I think they have like 50 or 60 kids, and it's pretty much half and half.
Great.
That's good.
All right, all set on presentations?
You bet.
All right, so we're going to go into old business and try and finish up here. We've had a couple talks about the proposed one-to-one Chromebook program that's going to start at the high school hopefully next year. So we had some questions about as part of that program, we were entertaining a proposed user fee of $50 per year. I think is basically what we want to talk about, right? I think we covered ground on how the program is going to be implemented.
And we have 3 slides that we'd like to share with you this evening, and Julie and Natalie and Dr. Harrington will be going over them with us.
Okay, good evening. We're back again to talk about Chromebooks and the one-to-one initiative. And we wanted to come back and address concerns that came up in one of the previous meetings related to fees. And I have to say right off the top to everyone here, no one likes fees. We would prefer to have the funds available in the operational budget each year. We recognize that there are cost constraints and competing commitments for funding. And we do have a few fees already in the school district that everybody's mindful of: a student activity fee, a bus fee, an athletic fee. But nonetheless, we'd like to go to a couple of slides today and just talk in regards to why we are proposing this fee. And I'd like to go to this slide here that shows our first proposal. This was part of our original presentation to stabilize costs over time within the capital budget and gradually adopt one-to-one Chromebooks. This process would add Chromebooks in the 9th grade or 10th grade and take us through the next 4 years, as you can see. We have predicted end-of-life issues, as we discussed at length at the previous presentations, and are trying to stay ahead of this looming expiration date. Within the next 2 years, a number of our current Chromebooks and carts will face the end of life. We face the need to double the purchase of Chromebooks for 2 grades, as we presented before, either in this budget or the next budget, There was fair amount of discussion among the members at the last meeting about that, and why this would be a feasible thing to do next year is what we're really hoping to do is adopt Chromebooks for 9th and 10th grade next year. This will help us to maintain inventory and provide an adequate number of devices for all our students. Now, if we go to the next slide, Steve, this slide, I believe this is slide 3 of the presentation. There are other anticipated district technology costs that you're well aware of, and we have a forecast ahead. We tried to give you a good semblance of it here. There are probably others, though, that aren't on this table. But these technology costs impact the budget and challenge us, all of us, to attempt to stabilize costs and stay within the expectations of the town budget. For example, the Mac lab at the high school, $40,000 there projected in the future. iPads and Chromebooks at other schools. Staff MacBook replacements that are coming soon and all across all the buildings. And then we'll go to so that just gives you a sense of the other technology costs and all the different things, just even within the technology cost center that we have to grapple with as we try to advance the quality of instructional technology across the high school. Like, we just go to the next slide there. Now, if you look to the far right here, and this is our option 1, this is the rollout to 9th and 10th grade and next year that we'd like to do, ideally in the summer with the acquisition of the devices so we could roll it out when students arrive. If you look at the far right and sort of the aqua color there, you'll see that we did basically a cost estimate of what the anticipated tech fee, the total amount that we would collect if we had 100% participation. We will not have 100% participation in this. We will have some, as you know, we also proposed a BYOD option, so we will have some students who will opt not to purchase a Chromebook from the high school. In fact, this might push some to say, you know what, I'd rather just acquire my own device rather than go through the school district. And we're prepared for this. Remember, this is a one-to-one Chromebook program with a BYOD option. That was a central component that the superintendent insisted that we have in there. And also our school council, our parents, and some of our students gave us an early feedback in different forums. They wanted to be able to have the ability to bring their own device. Many students already have their own and would not need to participate in this. They do need to have access to the Chrome browser, of course. But this slide shows the forecasted cost of purchasing Chromebooks for each student, the proposed revenue from a $50 tech fee. And you can see just in the first one, the 2017-2018, just for example, we have next year, $13,000 will help with mitigating a $71,000 plus cost of Chromebooks. In the following year, $18,500. This is with 100% participation. Will certainly help manage the cost of $30,000 in Chromebooks. Again, the fee does not cover the entire cost of the Chromebooks. It simply helps to mitigate the cost. So what are the reasons for the fee? We can just go, and this is something you already know, and reduces costs as we continue to purchase other necessary instructional materials and technology for the high school and for the district. So you can see there, it says in purchasing Chromebooks for students, partially reducing some district costs, provides funds for sustainability and repairs, replacement, rather than having to offer some type of insurance program that we would send out to parents. We will take care of repairs and replacement at the district level. And it will help assist with future purchases as we go and develop the program. And this was an added component. We think that having a little skin in the game, as they sometimes say, having a little bit of investment will help promote responsibility. Devices will be assigned to an individual student. That's not our current model. All kinds of students are sharing devices across the day in different classrooms and settings. And we think, providing a student with their own device, it's clearly identified with theirs as theirs, and they help to pay for it. Our hope is that at the end of 4 years, they'll be able to obtain the device, but we are looking at procurement policies and regulations around that to see if that is in fact something we can do as a district. We would like to be able to give the student paid for the device essentially. And the cost, we mentioned this at previous presentations, but if people are watching tonight for the first time, the cost of Chromebooks are going to fluctuate. Even the devices themselves are now changing. In the last week or two, there's been a lot of news about Chromebooks now having a tablet component to it too, a flip component. So we'll have to look and discuss that as a technology team and an admin team, whether that's something we want to look into, because it's now going to be operating not only the Chrome OS system, but also Android in the future, school is working toward that integration. So that's something we'll have to plan for as to what type of device we want to get the best device possible for the students, for the best basically the best value. So as we look into that, we expect the cost to drop in some way. So other considerations, though, for you to think about are the expansion of a one-to-one program to grades 5 to 12, and that's going to come at a cost. And there are limits, as we're often informed of, within the operational budget and the capital budget. So we need to have some way to offset that. And then there's also going to be a need at some point. We have to be upfront about this, that as we acquire more devices, there's a responsibility to service them in a timely manner and with some expertise. So we're going to have to hire at some point an additional technology person, certainly at the high school, but at the other buildings as well. That's just something that school districts are seeing as they expand technology offerings. And there has to be a level of support not only for students but also for the instructors. All the teachers need to have someone they can go to as a point person to quickly resolve issues so it doesn't interrupt the flow of instruction during the school day. So those are some major reasons why we're proposing the tech fee at the high school at this point in time. We're happy to have Natalie Branch with me and Julie Lord, the tech coordinators for the district, with me tonight. Happy to answer any questions you might have. And I think you already know the reasons really why we're proposing it. I think it's a matter of whether it's really up to the committee and the town to decide how they want to, I know philosophically we support the Chromebooks. That seemed to be resounding at the previous meetings and previous presentations. It's a matter of coming up with how do we want to pay for it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Questions, comments?
Got a few questions. Love the idea and concept, right? Like,
Right.
21st century, having 24/7 access to these types of devices is going to be huge. We don't want to be caught, behind the ball on this type of thing, or other kids are being more acclimated with the technology. So totally on board with the concept. I have a couple questions, like logistically. So hopefully these are quick answers because you have a bunch of them.
Sure.
Student participates, typically as you get older through high school, that's when you start maybe getting a laptop or iPad or, I think most of the kids even have these now already.
Yep.
But, so what would happen for a kid who participates like year one, maybe year two, chooses to use their own laptop?
You mean,
Junior, senior year.
participates initially and then
Yep,
opts
then
out?
buys a laptop and wants to use that instead
I
of.
think that's
paying
something we'll
for
have to build into our, sort of our guidelines.
Okay.
Because that scenario is real. I thought that may happen, and I think we have to then take the device back. They've paid for in terms,
essentially like a lease for that year or
Yeah,
whatever.
they paid for it for that year, and then it becomes property.
And then over the
It's still
summer?
property of the school at that
The
point.
summer, are they keeping these over the summer or only
You
during
want to
the?
address that? I certainly would support that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, especially since there's a lot of summer projects that are happening with high school and middle school, so I don't see any reason why not.
Okay.
I think that would be a valid reason to do so.
Yep.
It also becomes a major management and logistical issue for our staff.
Right, and you can imagine how this would lead to just one more reason why hiring another technology person might be necessary. By no means it would be the only reason, but, so you mentioned like insurance type thing, so if a student happened to break their device, is it expected that they pay another $50 for a new one, or do they get repaired somehow just with paid for by the school, or the students responsible for repairs?
We're going to look at what other schools, we're not an early adopter district, as you know, so there's lots of districts that have existing policies. We're going to see how they handled that. And I think, we'd have to figure out what would be the most reasonable thing. We will, with the fee, one of the things we want to have is money, a little bit of money.
Yeah,
It's not
to
a
be able
lot,
to-
as you can tell from the numbers in that ARCWA in that column. But it's enough to help cover the cost of a replacement. And we also are going to purchase a fair amount of Chromebooks beyond what the number of
The exact number of
participants.
participants.
So we'll have them on hand for loaners and for replacements. There's the whole issue of finding, if was it malicious?
Right,
Was it totally accidental? I think we have to, at that point, I don't think if the person paid their $50 tech fee, I think one of the things I would recommend is that, we replace it.
Okay.
It just, just
If
replace
it's
it.
non-intentional breakage, that would be the use of that tech fee portion that
Right.
we're putting aside as an insurance measure. If it's
So-
intentional breakage, it would be a different story.
Yeah, so most of these, I understand, that these are like logistical things. that
Yeah, guidelines and
That'll get
policies.
sorted out as they come, so I'm less concerned with those. Bigger kind of conceptual question, the saving, well, I guess it's a two-part question, but can you remind me what the current cost is if we were not to adopt the one-to-one program? Just the annual or biannual, or whatever it is, the cycle of purchasing the Chromebooks versus the cost of the one-to-one program without charging a fee? It should be.
Right, so if we weren't trying to adopt this one-to-one program, we would have, to support the high school's current inventory, we would have paid about $22,000 a year just to support that 380 devices.
Right, all right.
So it's a different, so that's really what we would have had to, just to maintain what we've already integrated.
And then,
into
so the
classroom.
cost now will be the number of Chromebooks, number of people participating plus some cushion, minus, and then we'll be saving the $50 per person who's, participating or whatever.
Right, so if we went back a couple of charts. One more.
Yep.
That one, right, so okay, so let's look at the second year, right? Because
Yeah.
the first year is sort of 2 years.
Right.
So we would have been investing about, every year, when we looked at maintaining a current, stable inventory of the device, of the inventory level that we have now, it would have been about 22. And then that next year would be about 30,000 that we would be,
Okay,
if we were to go one-to-one.
Can
okay.
you say that again?
So it would have been, so in order to maintain our current inventory, so the other numbers, let's say, if we look at Russell Street, okay, in order for them to maintain their current Chromebook inventory, that's the number that's going to support that.
That's the 1875?
Yep.
All right.
The high schools would have been about 22,000 to support,
At the December.
That's the cost of the one-to-one program, is the
this
$30,000.
is the cost of the one-to-one
Right, so what's not
program.
reflected in this slide is what if we were not adopting the
No,
one-to-one program?
no, this was actually with the high school.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right. So the high school line there is if that was the one-to-one option one.
Yeah.
All the other schools are really their, the
The status quo.
stabilization, yeah, of maintaining their current inventory.
So it would be somewhere around the 20-something
Yep,
thousand
yep,
dollars.
that's what the high
Remember
school.
that's where you get the figure. remember that
Yes,
figure. Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
It's $10,000 less.
All right, and then, so the one-to-one program will cost $10,000 more, but then we'll be collecting some sort of fee, or, that's an estimate, right, that based on how many people will be participating.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
All right, so then I think the way it works out then is there'll probably be some net savings. Obviously not, you want to build in cushion for repairs and stuff like that, but have we talked as a district, did I miss it last time, about what might happen with those dollars that are not going to be spent on the current investment period?
Well, the dollars would be, with the exception of the money we hold back for repairs, would be put back into the one-on-one program at the high school. That's the intent of utilizing the fee to its maximum.
Well, that would be for the fee, but I guess my point is that there'll be, it's maybe a budgetary question, but there'll be money that's going to be not allocated. And what I don't want is, I'm fundamentally in favor of this program. I'm fundamentally opposed to the notion of public schools charging
I
any
think-
sorts of fees.
but I think
Hold
we
on one
have-
second, hold on one
okay.
second. So my concern is that, totally in favor of it, I just want to make sure that when it comes time, that we're careful as a school committee to make sure that we're not just using this as a fee to free up money, in another area. So I just want to make sure that whatever that conversation is.
Yeah, no,
happens.
what we're going to propose is that we go to the town and get town approval to establish another revolving fund just for this technology fee.
Okay.
So it'd be there, it'd be open, it'd be transparent, it would only be used for this Chromebook technology.
I also want us to be careful. I don't want us to assume that the one-to-one Chromebook program is a direct replacement of the Chromebook cart program.
Absolutely.
It's not, and the money is not. It's a change in how we're going to deliver technology to the students. So it's a false comparison to say, well, if you didn't do the one-to-one, you would take the money and you would just, so you should be using the same money that you would use, Because if we don't do the one-to-one, we still might not do the Chromebook cart thing, or maybe we will do the Chromebook cart thing for another couple of years until we find a different alternative that's different between the Chromebook carts and the one-to-one. So I think we need to be careful about drawing a one-to-one comparison between the two, and each one should be on its own merits.
Last meeting that was presented as the idea was the plan to retire the Chromebook cart at the last meeting. That was the plan that we presented, was to retire the Chromebook cart program at the same time that we phase in.
That's something that is going to happen because we choose to do this. We're not doing this because we want to get rid of the Chromebook carts per se. We're doing it because we think this is a better way to deliver the technology to the students.
So, but from a budget perspective, I'd like to just look at it slightly, talk about, because I think I might be close to where they're talking about here. So if I parse the different numbers there, it looks like we're going to be basically increasing our capital request for technology by about $10,000. You know, with this program
Bump
versus
next year, if we do the one-to-one and do 2 grades, just.
Yeah, I know, but that's,
I just wanted to
if
make
I
sure.
average it out, it's
Okay.
10,000, you know.
Over time, yeah.
It's a $10,000 increase in our capital request. And if I interpret the use of the technology fee is to basically subsidize the 10,000 or to subsidize the 30,000.
That was.
And I think that's what you're asking
Yep.
there. And I think that's where we.
I think that, there's the other one, the one that has the, yes, that helps maybe Darryl picture it a little bit, to see what the far right, see that if it's gonna cost next year to go Chromebook one-to-one for 2 grades, $71,240 roughly, with 100%, participation, which we know this is just a number to conceptualize it. $13,000 would be collected in fees, now either to help purchase the Chromebooks, I imagine would have already been purchased, so that money would be applied to the future purchase perhaps of the following year.
So again, just so that, because the language I want to,
Yep.
is so in year one, we're going to raise $13,000 in fees that would offset $30,000.
It'll be even less than that, but yeah, okay.
It doesn't matter that it's plus or minus that, to offset a $30,000 capital increase there. We're not asking them to subsidize our basic capital need of whatever our base number without doing this program is. I think that's what I'm interpreting your question as, and I just, again, I want to just make sure I understand, the deltas in the numbers.
Well, first of all, we're not going to collect the 13,000. Right? There are going to be a number of factors here. Free and reduced students will not pay a fee. That will be a reduction. Some students will choose to bring their own, so we won't be purchasing a Chromebook. But until we know exactly where we stand, it's pretty hard to determine the exact cost. And I'd like you to think bigger. The only reason we're doing grade 9 and 10, there are a couple of reasons, but the primary reason is we can't afford to do a larger implementation at this point in time. So as a superintendent, I'm going to put my cards on the table here. We have a lot of areas of our budget that we constantly monitor because we haven't been able to increase our revenue to take care of those particular issues. They're coming out of choice funds. And everybody around this table knows that we've increased our commitment of choice funds to make our budgets work. So I want you to take a look at the global picture of budgeting in this district. We know we're ready, our students are ready to go 5 to 12, but we cannot fiscally afford to do that, even with the fee at this point in time. It's a matter of in a few years, my dream would be within 3 years, we're 5 to 12, but we have to plan for that in terms of revenue. Whenever you implement a program like this, and I've done 2 of these in the past, you have to ensure that it's going to be sustainable. And when Steve and I keep going over the numbers, there are so many other things coming at us every single day that we are cautious, and you want us to be cautious. You don't want us to come to you in December and say, we need $40,000 more. I mean, it's our job to try to work within that budget revenue that we're given. That's our responsibility. So I understand and appreciate that fees are something that we want to minimize. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that as a school committee. In the last 8 years, we've virtually maintained fee structures in this district when costs have been rising. And I think that's admirable. And it shows a common purpose to try to minimize costs to our citizens in this community. But when it comes to a user fee, first of all, you have to think about bring your own device. That is our vision for this district. It has been for 6 years. That's all we've been talking about. If we want to change the vision and not go BYOD, there's some cost implications for that. We're not taking into account the increased budgetary strain if we have to hire another technology person, for example. With increased technology use, we have increased electricity costs. With increased technology use, we have increased bandwidth demands. And all that money comes out of a finite amount. I mean, we're still in a restorative budgeting pattern for some of our positions within the district. So I just want to make sure that we bring that big picture to the table here, and then we can tease out some of the smaller concerns.
So don't misinterpret my questions. I'm fully in supportive of our decision to go to a one-to-one program.
Right, I don't want to interrupt.
I'm
You
trying-
probably have something more that you're going to say, but I want to agree too. I think whatever it comes across, it seems like people got very defensive about, I can't stress enough that we're not attacking the program, and I understand, I'm very aware of all those pros of this. I know it's good to air them out for everyone else. Not a criticism, but it's important, especially having missed that last meeting, it's important that we know where these things are going, right? So not an attack at all on the program.
Yes,
just
and what I want to just make sure I understand, so that, you know, when and if I get questions on this relative to as a school committee member here, I want to understand, you know, are we charging a fee that is going to be greater than the normal budget request, knowing the constraints in the town here, so i.e., is the fee going to subsidize it so that the monies could be applied to other usage? If that is, that's a policy decision kind of thing here. If if the numbers are coming out that it's only going to partially offset the piece here, and it will enable us to more rapidly adjust to do the program, that's important for me to know here. And then if we decide that we don't like the concept of a fee, but we still want the program, we need the information so that we can make that case. I'm sorry, to the town. I'm very sensitive to the increases that we're looking for in order to start restoring our program. That perhaps this might not be one of the things that we want to specifically ask the town to pay back. I just need to make sure that, similar to any other fee, that we're not using it to oversubscribe in terms of how much the cost of that piece is. My first blush at those numbers looks like, the fees are not going to pay for the complete device on a yearly basis. It's in fact, it's going to come pretty close to being equal to the $10,000 delta that you're asking for. And all I'm looking for is that the correct understanding of what the fee structure is going to provide here?
I mean, those are great questions, Gerald, and I would like to think that nobody thinks anybody's getting defensive. I get excited about these programs, but I'm certainly not defensive, and I really appreciate the fact that we all want to do what's right for the community and for our students, and if we can minimize fees, that is part of our mandate. The concept of BYOD really does, throughout time, ease some of the technology strain for not only our district, but all districts. And I believe, and our leadership team believes, that we're at a point in time where the computer is now almost a notebook. It's an organizational tool. It's a device that our students are going to need to be proficient at as they continue their education beyond high school. So I look at this as an opportunity to embrace that fact that it's here, and the cost is finally affordable. When I was doing one-on-one laptop programs in other districts, we're paying $1,200, $1,300 a machine plus the software. It wasn't affordable, so we were eating the majority of the cost, and it was an expensive program. But the community supported it, and luckily we had the revenues to continue with that program. We also had state revenue to support just that program. So it will take a bit of the strain off the technology budget, just by the nature of the fact that we're coming to the realization that this is a tool that should be viewed not dissimilar to a Texas Instrument scientific calculator, or the notebooks that we purchase on a yearly basis. And Steve and I have been looking at that too, in terms of, you know, what are our costs for parents when students come back to school in September, and we're hoping that integrating this technology is going to decrease that cost as well, because it should become a notebook in reality. And Darrell, I can't remember the other question you asked.
No, like I said, I just want to make sure that I understand, you know, sort of the increase in the capital needs to support this program, and then how we're, you know, offsetting that, you know, and the intent of the technology fee is to offset that direct increase there. I'm comfortable with that there. You addressed my concern about the free and reduced lunch. One thing that was brought to my attention, though, is the Chromebooks require internet connectivity, and you know, while many of us have internet at home, is that something, you know, where does that fall into the factors of, you know, particularly maybe with some of the free and reduced lunch, or other people in town that may or may not have or afford internet at home? These devices are tethered to the internet in that sense.
There are state programs that will help low-income families get internet access at home. We can hook them up.
It's a good point, but I think the vast majority of what the district is offering to the students is by definition internet-based.
Yeah.
Regardless of I don't think there's any program right now, except for maybe a couple of programming classes, if we were going to go that way, that would be self-contained on any computing device. Everything is based on your access to the files that are up in the cloud. And we're old enough to know that, you know, everything used to be on your hard drive. That was the only way to run. Actually,
I know
my first one was on my floppy drive.
I only bring it up because it's easy for some of us to
Well,
you know.
I think it's a great point. I think the point goes well beyond the one-to-one, or really, it's the BYOD, or really the idea that we're going to replace our paper notebooks with an electronic device. Then we need to know as a community that that's supportable, and when it's not in a particular instance, what's the backup plan?
Right.
You know?
And that they're still treated at the same level.
Right,
of
they're not
those
going to get
students.
They're not going to get shortchanged in the delivery of education.
One thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you can work offline with the Chromebooks. So you would go home, work offline, and when you come back and you have access to the internet again, everything syncs.
Oh, that's good.
So we have had a couple instances where we've had some students that have needed a device for the weekend. We have done that, and it's worked great. So we are sensitive to that as well.
No,
I think districts much larger than ours who have done Chromebook rollouts will have good advice for us on that, because they're higher incidence of economically disadvantaged students.
Yeah.
And I do think that we did do a survey, I think, in the last year or two, where we of students, and we found and parents as well, and we found very few homes in Littleton where it was, one point it was one or two families where it was by choice, not to have internet access, but it's very low incidence in Littleton, the number of families or students that do not have internet access outside of school. And one of the things that the Chromebook does go right at, though, is the equity issue. I think that was brought up as one of our keystones of our presentation. So I just wanted to echo that again.
And there are a lot of, access points in this day and age. You know, you go to a restaurant, or Starbucks, a public library. Some bigger cities that are faced with the same challenge are actually installing Wi-Fi's in their buses, and they're parking their buses in various spots in the community. So some pretty creative things are being done out there. But that's an important point to bring up, because we don't want to create an inequity, and that's something we're really going to have to watch closely as we roll this out to make sure that doesn't happen.
I just want to make sure that we're attuned to the issue. I know that our demographic generally doesn't fall into that category, but I don't know if it's 100%.
But our free and reduced rates are creeping up. Yeah. I know when I did an analysis just yesterday, They're a little higher than they were 4 years ago. So it is something to really keep at the forefront.
I've got another thought, really doesn't need an answer, just a thought. We talked about the free and reduced lunch population a lot, and I think with this program, again, one of the goals is to reduce the inequity. So I hope, I don't know how that type of thing with all these fees happens, where I hope that there's some sort of proactive effort to make sure these people know. I know, especially in higher ed, we see the problem all the time where people don't want to self-report that they can't do something, can't afford something. So I hope there's some, again, doesn't even answer, just some sort of proactive effort that if people can't afford it, that they should be encouraged to participate anyway. And then, quick question about BYOD. I think this is more of a tech question. That's the trend, and it seems to make sense, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to have duplicative technologies, right? If you own one at home, then to have something, in school as well. What is the technological, like, threshold or whatever that's needed to participate with your own device? Like, is a smartphone enough? Is an iPad enough? Does it have to be a laptop?
So we're still discussing the parameters, and we would be very specific.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, battery life would be significant.
Yeah.
We're thinking we would suggest it would have to have a keyboard, and you would have to be able to run Chrome.
Okay.
Those right now, but I think we would discuss that.
Because I was thinking that would be important to give parents enough lead time of what that is, because if someone's thinking, I might be investing in a laptop in the next year anyway, so make sure I buy one that fits these needs or whatever.
Right.
It's important.
All right, other comments?
I have just a couple other questions. It's not quite on the fee. So I saw the life cycle plan for the technology there. So what about like the physics lab? I know we had an issue with the physics lab that we ended up buying some new computers, but I don't see them specifically. I see the Macs itemized in there. I remember some concerns before about whether the sufficient processing capability for the physics-based programs.
That's something. I mean, I know we didn't capture all of the costs that we may have to shoulder. The physics lab, we're really hoping with the increase in caliber of software for Chromebooks that they could become a substitute, within a few years, hopefully sooner, to perform some of the functions that they can't now. But that's something we have in the back of our mind. They're PC-driven labs, and their computers, I believe the last round they spent about $500 a computer, if I remember correctly. But we didn't capture that, and we're going to find odds and ends that we didn't capture in these profiles. So.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask about it. And then the other one, it's maybe just delving into the tech too much there, but I mean, with the life cycle of these here, we're not picking one and then choosing it. I see these likely or the model changing every year based on the way the technology is changing. You're right.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of analysis on models and things right now. The models that we currently have are not going to be available in the next year. And with the phablets, as I like to call them, it's a tablet and it's a Chromebook, and that's great, but it's just brand new. And I'd like to see all the kinks work themselves out before we start adopting into that. Yep. We do have 3 great vendors that we're trying to research and resource through to make sure that our purchasing is very thoughtful, and we're taking our time to make sure that it's the right model for the students. We've been doing this now 3-4 years, so we've had a variety of models, some much better than others. But we feel so comfortable in being able to fix them even. We've had little issues that have come through, so.
I'd just like to go back to Darrell's question or comment about the physics lab, just so you know. The physics lab acquired brand new PC laptops just within the last year. So that's perhaps why they're not on the chart.
Anything else?
I think I monopolized for a while now.
Alex, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a number of them. But I guess I wanted to start by asking, not entirely rhetorically, when was the last time we eliminated a fee in the district?
We haven't.
We haven't. And so I know that's something that we we know, but I wanted to air that because I think it's important to recognize that.
But I know it's only somewhat rhetorical, but also, when's the last time that we got a significant increase in local aid or Chapter 70 money to support new initiatives?
Technically,
Since I've been here.
every year, but it's
I
never
said
been.
significant.
Yeah, I agree with
said
you. I
significant.
agree with you.
And again, specifically to address new efforts and new concepts in public education, and we haven't.
We also have not increased the fees across the board, and
But I see your point. I mean, it's a valid point.
And I'm glad we've kept the fees from rising even further, but I did want to start by saying we have fees. If we vote to adopt this fee, it's not necessarily going to be permanent, but if we assume that things are going to remain sort of static at the state level, at the local level, we can assume it's going to be there for a while. I think that's a fair assumption to make. I also wanted to talk about your discussion of whether or not we're going to be replacing one program with another. I sort of think about it as a car. Let's say you have a car right now that meets most of your needs, not all of your needs, doesn't have a lot of storage in the back. That's what we got now, the Chromebook cards. Again, please bear with me with this. Suddenly you have another kid, or the kid starts playing sports, or for whatever reason you need more space. You start your own moving company, come up with a reason. You need more space, you get a bigger car. You're probably not going to need both cars. If you have the luxury of having both cars, you're going to sustain them, but you probably only need one to get around. And right now, I think we're a one-car district, given the lack of investment at the state and the federal level, and the constraints at the local level at funding our budget over a longer period of time. So when we talk about this, isn't the one-to-one program will not replace necessarily the Chromebook program. I can see your point, but I think it's more of a technical one than a practical one, because the administration at the last meeting said that was the plan. Plans can change. Maybe we phase it out a little slower, or we move the Chromebooks in a little slower, and so it's not an exact, you go in, we go out, but it's another assumption that I think is fair to make, that we're not going to want to sustain a Chromebook. There's no reason to sustain a Chromebook program for $35,000 a year when everyone is bringing their own device anyway, or whether it's our Chromebook that we provide to them, or whether it's the device they bring at home. It doesn't make sense to maintain a separate fleet. At the last meeting, I asked why it was a $50 fee and not a $10 fee or a $15, or pick a number. And so I'd ask again, why is it a $50 fee and not some other number?
I think, it's an estimate. The school committee reserves the right to determine what set fee it wants to set. It's to conceptualize the issue, I think, and to offer a proposal initially for the school committee to consider. That would bring in some revenue that would be significant enough. As you know, it's mitigating the cost somewhat, right, of the Chromebooks, of future purchases, and all the other things we said the fee would go toward. It helps the effort, but a $50 fee was seen as modest, and I think we're also kind of conceptualizing it with the cost of the device. Device is now around, students and families will be making a significant contribution towards the overall purchase of the device over a 4-year plan. It's $50 per year, and the device is now running anywhere, Alex, between $200 and $300, sometimes, depending on what you get.
Is what we were priced at.
So those are the numbers we're working with now. I think that's where the number came from, is sort of thinking, what would get us to $200 towards roughly the cost of the device over time, but also what would contribute in some healthy way to helping with the cost, the overall cost of the Chromebooks. But we totally respect the right of the school committee to determine the fee, and if they want to adjust it and lessen it, or eliminate it and add it to the operational budget. It's it's all within your bounds to decide that. This is just one proposal from administration to help with the costs, because we understand and respect the overall town budget and all the competing commitments that we have, not only within the school, but also all the other town departments. So this is our effort as a school administration to help with somewhat offset the cost, but not totally eliminate it or take it on. But if as I said in my opening first few sentences, if the school committee can find a way to do this within the operational budget, I can tell you as a principal and as a tech team, it'll be a lot more easier for us to manage than going around collecting fees.
I think the $50 too, probably right. It's not an there's no exact science to this, right? There's no
Just to
there's no way
conceptualize
to
the issue.
data point, to analyze what the number will be. But basically, you're trying to balance like offsetting some portion of the cost, but then a big part of it we talked about is having, like you said, having some skin in the game, having some
At what
ownership.
point is it worth it to collect the fee too? If it were, like, I think you might have said $10 or $20 or something at one point, at this meeting or last meeting. At what point is that really worth it for the effort expended by all the personnel to collect the fee and to ask the families? It would have to be, it matches our student activity fee.
If you send in a check for 40 cents in the mail, you're spending more on postage than you are on the check.
If students join a club at the high school, there's a $50 fee. But they don't get a Chromebook. In this case, it's a $50 fee. That's another way to look at it too. But it's that's. I hope that helps to answer your questions. We were just trying to set a rate, but
It's an imperfect balancing act. You're trying
I can add a couple of things here. The $50 fee over 4 years represents about 66% of the cost of the device, without consideration of other factors. It's just the device. In order to truly actualize the vision of a bring your own device program, you have to encourage people to bring their own device or purchase their own device. So it goes hand in hand with the philosophy that we feel that we're ready for a bring your own device program. And I guess the bigger question is, as one moves forward, as districts move forward, should we be shouldering that cost within an operational budget? And it's a philosophical question, and I always have to ask that at times. To not charge a fee or charge a minimal fee, I don't believe we would move towards the BYOD program. And then should the community be shouldering the responsibility of paying for those devices for many, many years, especially as we are evolving and changing? Can we afford to do that over time? I mean, that's the bigger question. Fees are something that most of us have lived with our entire careers, and it's out of necessity to be able to give things or provide things to our students so that they're going to get the best education that we can provide. So it's a balance that we're trying to do. And I thought of something, Alex, when you first asked a question. We have minimized or helped minimize our athletic fees by developing a family cap. And that has greatly helped families that have more than one child. So, that is a cost reduction, and a significant one at that for some families. So, I don't know of districts that have been able to decrease fees without a huge pot of money being or landing on their doorstep. And we can always hope for that, but to be a realist, our projected increase in Chapter 70 is $32,000. I mean, that's not much considering when we look at all expenses, we're close to 22 million. And so, but John, or Dr. Harrington is right. We're not here as a leadership team wanting the public to spend more money. We're bringing this proposal to you because we feel it's the only way to provide this program in a sustainable fashion. And it will allow us, within a period of 3 years, to drop down into grade 5 and have a seamless 5 to 12 Chromebook program within our district. And our students are ready in grade 5. They're using computers quite a bit, and they're using electronic filing and creation, exploration. So that's our purpose here, folks. So we're not money hungry. Our job is to work within the operational budget that we're given, and we just want to be cautious to make sure that we can do that.
So if we operate again under what the district recommended or suggested at the last meeting, where we would replace the Chromebook cart fleet with the one-to-one program, we would see that instead of a $35,000 cost, the cost of this program would be at 100% participation, $10,000 to $13,000 within that ballpark, because you take the 35 cost of the new car, take off the old car, and we were left with a delta of $10,000 to $13,000 at 100% participation.
That's the hard
At
number.
100% participation. If you reduce participation to 75%, and that's including the loaners, so I included the 500 total, which includes the loaners that students won't have themselves, we'll just have them in the building, and you include that, make that 75% of that, the delta is only $3,000 between what we spend now on the Chromebook CART program and what we would spend at 75% participation in a one-to-one program. 75% I think is a feasible number for what we could expect participation to be, especially for charging fees. People are going to be wanting to flock to BYOD, which I have some issues with using a fee to, that's another discussion, and maybe I'll save that for after the meeting. But if we have a $3,000 delta between what we're spending now on the Chromebook CART fleet and what we would spend on a one-to-one program with a 75% participation, and then we reduce the number of people paying fees by 75%, the total amount of money we would need to cover that $3,000 delta is about $10. Because you would have.
But did you, I can't calculate that
Sure.
fast. But,
Sure, so
but
300.
did you also, you also brought down, we're not going to buy, if we only have a 75% opt-in, we're not going to buy 130 devices.
Right, that's what I brought down.
Okay, you did.
I did.
So you brought that number down
So that's
to-
why the delta is 3,000 instead of the
Okay.
13,000, is because there are fewer, I factored in students are buying or using fewer devices that we need to then purchase to bring that down by 75%, but including the loaners. And then I also bring down the amount of fees we're taking in, because if we have fewer students using it, we have a fewer amount of lower cost to cost share. And if we have a delta of about $3,000 to $4,000 and we have 300 kids, roughly 75%, that's a cost share of $10 to $11 per kid. That should be our fee, if that's what we think 75 is more realistic. And we're not there yet. We're not there at 75%. And
If the only reason to have the fee is to subsidize each one of the devices.
Which I think,
That
If
we've
we're-
talked in a more faceted manner about what the fee is truly designed to do.
and I have.
I'm just throwing that out as a
Right.
cautionary
And-
note on your analysis.
And I was about to get there. Traditionally, in this district and in Massachusetts and in public education in general, fees have been used to subsidize the cost of the programs that the fees are collected for. We take our athletic fees, which are again our extracurricular, so different than the Chromebook, which is not, it's a component of the key core educational program. But we use the athletic fees to help subsidize the cost of athletics. We use the activity fees, which again, we don't want any of these fees, but we use them to subsidize the cost of the clubs and activities after school. We use the transportation fees to pay for the transportation contract. It would be a break in district practice, I don't want to say policy, but in practice, to use the fee for anything other than providing the one-to-one program in grades 9 through 12. If we were to use it to expand the program to grades 5 through 8, which I think, again, there's a programmatic argument for that, and I'm not bashing that argument, but to charge the kids at the high school a fee to provide a device
I can't
for them.
support that. You're making a huge leap, that I can't see you get to. Nobody has said
No.
that the goal of charging the fee is so that we can that we can use that money to subsidize and roll out faster. The
Can you go to the
idea,
next slide?
the idea was that it would support the BYOD concept and allow us to get down into the lower grades sooner. Nobody has
Other grades
posited
would be
for
charged
1
the
second,
same.
hold on please, has posited for 1 second that the reason we're doing it is to ask the high school kids to subsidize Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Because if it goes down to the lower grades, they're gonna, in all likelihood, the $50 fee would go across the board.
So then the cost of an education in Littleton would expand not just by $200 for the 4 years at the high school, but whatever that is from 5th grade on. And I think we should acknowledge
For
that.
access to a new resource, yes.
And I think you'd have to look at it when you get closer to that time. There's a lot of speculative.
Actually, can I hold on a second? I want to keep this discussion strictly between the school committee members for a few minutes. Because this is a conceptual aspect to how we policy-wise, we want to administer the district.
And the other thing, Alex, that we haven't really talked about much here is, again, that this is a notion of you're getting a device that you're taking home with you, and so it's going beyond the school day itself. So you're talking about a nominal fee. I don't want to make broad generalizations, because, the whole population of Littleton, this will be a nominal fee, but in a lot of respects, it'll be a nominal fee for a device that you'll then have access to 24/7 over the summer, which is just not going to happen. If conceptually we agree that the fee shouldn't happen, then the one-to-one program will likely not.
We wouldn't, we wouldn't charge a student $50 per year for a textbook that we then say, in 4 years, I'm going to give you a 4-year-old textbook that maybe isn't that accurate. These devices, when they take them home after 4 years, are not going to be supported. They're going to be either at or about to be at their end of year, their end of life cycle. We can expect that they won't have the computing power for everything they're going to need.
But that means that they've still gotten the value of each one of those years for less than it would have cost them to buy it on the private market. At the end of the 4 years, even if it's not worth the, even if it's just a paperweight, they've still paid less than the value of the 4-year lifespan that they've got.
And they're still paying for a product that we consider to be core and important and necessary for the continuation of the regular ed program. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here saying you need a fee if you didn't think it was a good idea. And so I'm saying we would never tell a student, we're going to charge you $50 a year for a textbook. And I know they're not textbooks, and I know they're more expensive. But we wouldn't say, we're going to charge you $50 a year for a textbook, and at the end of the 4 years, you can use a textbook, put the information in, and it's inaccurate.
There's a lot of things, though, that we wouldn't do as a school system if you relied on that argument for every single thing. That because we didn't do it for textbooks, we shouldn't do it for, hockey helmets. And because we didn't do it for textbooks, we shouldn't do it for a lot of things. And we've offered school buses forever, but we still made the decision at some point that we needed to support the funding for.
And those are outside of the school day.
I'm not comfortable with your analogies there. Under no circumstance would I support concept of us charging for textbooks. If we go to electronic textbooks, there will not, from my perspective, there will not be a fee for electronic access to textbooks. So the analogies are not the same. We're talking about the device. We make, right now, teachers send home required notebooks to purchase and other things there. So whether you call that a fee or not, by telling them, buy this stuff before you come to school, it's part of their school supplies.
It's the tool versus the intellectual
and the tools
property that's coming
to
in
do it.
from.
I have concerns about increasing fees and the other pieces there, and I did want to start, the first thing is I'm only tonight here talking about grades 9 through 12. This is not a 5 through 12 discussion tonight there, so when we do have that discussion, it's going to be a totally different discussion there. I have concerns about us continuing to add fees on it, and I'm trying to make sure I understand the balance of where we're trying to go with our education program, making sure that we're sensitive to the expenses, both in tax revenue that we that we're asking for the town to support these programs, as well as what we're asking directly from the parents to do it. In an ideal world, we wouldn't be in the fee situation across the board here, but I just want to be careful of us using analogies that I don't think that map quite the same there. So, you can look at the TI-30 calculators we require every student at grade to purchase. That's a 8th grade, right? When I had to buy mine many years ago, they were much more than the $10 or $20 that they're charging now. But that was a calculator I bought too. Kind of thing there. So anyway, I just prefer if we keep the discussion kind of a little bit focused and relative to just the merits and the impacts of what we're going to be discussing is whether we levy and what would that fee be.
I agree that with Daryl, the thought process that I've gone through verbally here in the committee is so people understand that the school committee is trying to be as judicious as possible whenever we have to do one of these fees. And so thinking all of these things out, that it's 100% the right decision at this time. We're using the money for, we've thought this all through from all different ends, because I don't want people to think that we're instituting a fee just for the sake of, getting fancy laptops out to people.
And I also think that, to Dr. Harrington's Dr. Harrington's point earlier, that these are a good value for the device. It's a very, they're not like super fancy laptops. It's not like a MacBook Air. It's, you know, it's a really cheap, durable device that they can use for 4 years, and the cost is lower than it would be for most other devices. So I am on board with using this particular device. I think it's a good value for the device. My concerns lie with shifting costs of the educational experience, the regular educational and during the school day experience from the district to families. I appreciated your point about how this is a fee that you proposed, just $50, not tied to that number. I hope that we wouldn't be either, and that it was thrown out because it's consistent with some of our other fees. It's, you know, it's not going to be a huge, hopefully, sticker shock to a lot of people because they see these fees, they see $50 fees throughout the programming at Littleton Public Schools. My concern is again, the $50 fee at 100% covers a very large part of, what was the number? I think it was like 73% of the cost of the device, or was it closer to 63? It was in that.
Depends on which,
Yeah,
yeah,
depends.
it depends on the number.
Right, so I would be I would find this more palatable if the fee was the cost of the program, less the cost of the program that we are phasing out anyway, because we don't need 2 cars in this district, because we can't afford 2 cars in this district. I would find it much more palatable if our fee was equal to the amount, the cost of the first program, of the one-to-one program, less the cost of the Chromebook cart program, and then set by the number of people that we have in. So if it is the 75%.
I have
So
no
if we have
problem with any individual that holds that sentiment, but at that point, we shouldn't charge the fee.
Right.
It's so small as to be negligible and meaningless.
I agree.
So, well, then you just say that. Just say we shouldn't charge a fee.
Yeah, and I'm saying if we
And it's
charge,
fine.
if our argument is that, if the argument for charging a fee is that it covers the cost of
See,
just the
that's where I
Chromebook.
lose you, because that's not the sole portion, that's not the only reason that we're proposing to do this.
Okay.
And you're losing that one. I think you're conveniently forgetting that, and we've mentioned it. And if your argument would be perfectly valid, if the only reason we were charging the fee was to help subsidize the program. And if again, I still am not wholly supportive of your argument that, well, you're replacing one program, so you should only be looking at the delta. I personally have a different viewpoint on that, but I see where you're going with that. But given that, though, there are still other reasons why we're charging the fee.
There are 4 that I counted.
So, one thing I want to just say is for the first year, we're buying 260 Chromebooks at $50. And we're going to be collecting at maximum there $50. That's $13,000. That's less than the $30,000 of the cost of the program for the piece there. So I want to, you know, because we're not rolling out 400 of them or even 400 at 75% next year. So next year, we'd be collecting $13,000 in fees, offsetting $30,000 increase in our capital budget. So that's where I'm looking at the math for next year on it. And that's why I've reconciled in terms of what we talked about earlier. Now, is it, you know, now as we get into it next year, we may have a different discussion. If participation comes in at 50% or 75%, this may need to be revisited in terms of, you know, what are we offsetting costs for, and as a committee, where we want to be relative to that as a position.
Yeah, the other possibility is that a year from now, we get reported back that parents decided that they like these other Chromebooks better, so we only ended up buying 50 of these Chromebooks, and people are going out. You know, similar to the calculator example, right? As you're saying, you're being told you need to have a Chrome accessible device. If you cannot find one, if you do not have one or can't find one for a reasonable price, the school district has an option that you can choose to buy it through them. So maybe we shouldn't be equating it as a fee, which is like virtually everybody, younger kid getting to school is going to have to take the school bus. For this, it's almost like an option. Instead of considering it a fee, it's not a mandatory fee for everyone. Feel free to go find your own device, buy one. But for those people who do not feel comfortable going out and researching it, the school is providing a valuable device that we've researched that will meet our needs for a discounted price. So for those individuals who don't want to do it on their own, it's an option to purchase it through the school for $50.
And then I think we would be able to lower prorate the cost of that fee as required to subsidize the program. I know we disagree on that. I did want to, you did say, I'm forgetting the other reasons for having a fee. I'm not, I wrote them down actually, I wanted to talk about that too. One of them is, of course, to help subsidize the cost of the program. That's the one we've been talking about. The other is to increase the use of BYOD, not the acronym I wrote down, but BYOD. And my problem with that is we're not charging a fee in order to have our constituency do something different than the program that we're offering seems kind of backwards to me. And if we are doing it, I think we should consider that the participation rates will be lower. If that's our goal, is to lower the participation rates in the one-to-one program by having a higher fee, our fee is going to be, is not going to need to be as high to cover the cost.
I don't think that's an assumption that can be made either. It's not a discourage. I don't think anyone's suggesting that $50 is to discourage people from participating.
Didn't we just say that?
It's to encourage people to be.
It's encouraging them
BYOD.
to, right.
We're not trying to find the price point where people don't
The
participate.
issue is that if you don't charge a fee, why, if my child has a perfectly appropriate device,
I might take one
I would
anyway.
just take one from the high school anyway.
Right.
There's no reason not to.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We could charge a nominal fee, or we can expect our families to be responsible with that. And if we have a replacement fee, that will cover the cost of that issue, of us not getting the device back, or whatever the issue may be. That's another thing that sort of struck me, was to not have an answer yet. And I know it's, you know, we haven't said go yet on the process, so you don't need to have an answer right away. But I have, it's not a mark against you, I just have a tough time saying, well, this $50 fee we're going to say is okay, even though if participation rates are 75%, it could have been an $8 fee or a $12 fee. But it's to not have an answer on, well, are we going to charge a replacement fee or not? I think if we were to charge a replacement fee, and it doesn't need to be the cost of the whole device, it could be. I don't know what the other districts are doing. That would be good information for us to have when we make that decision. But that would certainly offset the additional cost incurred of this program, where folks are more likely to have more wear and tear or lose the device because they're bringing it home. And so having that replacement fee would lessen the need of the district to share that cost. I don't want to belabor this point too much longer, but that does sort of hit, I think, some of the other reasons of getting the fee, to encourage students to be more responsible with their devices. If we have a replacement fee, I think that's going to encourage them to be more responsible than just having a fee, regardless of if we have, like, if you're going to pay a fee and there's going to be no replacement fee, the fee for just using it, you're going to be less responsible with your device because you don't have a financial incentive to take more care of it. And sort of flipping that on the side, one of the reasons for having a fee is to, we were told, was to argue that that students would be more careful with the devices. Having a replacement fee, I think, knocks out that issue. And then the last piece on this slide is the other district costs. We knew we were going to need additional tech staff at some point. This would certainly speed that up. Same with bandwidth. We know people are using more devices now than they ever have before at the high school, before we've even said go on this program. We knew we were going to do bandwidth anyway. I have a tough time. I appreciate seeing these costs because they are important for our overall view of the district-wide technology landscape, and I think we are doing an incredible job, and that counts with some costs, district-wide and at the high school. But these, to me, don't justify the fee on the Chromebook one-to-one program. And I'm not saying that they do for anyone else. I'm saying for me, these are not related directly to it. We were going to have to do $40,000 for the Mac Lab anyway if we choose to continue to use the Mac Lab. We were going to have to do the bandwidth costs anyway. Whether it's this year or next year, that's true, but it's also $2,000. So whether it's this year or next year is, it's a fraction of the budget. These other costs are substantial, and they do need to be part of either our operating plan going forward or a capital plan going forward, and I am on board with that. My struggle here is I just think that $50 is an arbitrary amount for a fee that doesn't solely cover the cost of the delta of switching from the previous program to the current program. And I know we disagree on that way of looking at it, but I think you understand where I'm coming from on that. And for that reason, I don't think I can support this at this time.
But this chart here, I think, was inserted to address a question I had from last time, which is independent of the one-to-one program, which is what is our 3 to 5 year technology expected expenditures.
Right.
Which I'm expecting that these will occur no matter what, kind of thing there. And again, I'm back to I have not heard that the $50 fee is to subsidize any of these future technology costs.
That's just the one.
No, we wouldn't.
No, that's what I mean.
That's not appropriate.
So shouldn't it be lower?
We presented a fee for you to consider this evening. I'll leave it at that.
Comments?
My only, I think the $50 fee is reasonable. I like, Mike's reasoning that, if you're gonna have, why not just take the Chromebook if there's no fee? Even if it's $10, I'm still gonna take it. If I have a $1,000 laptop, I'll pay $10 to
Get the disposable one.
Exactly.
Don't worry about it.
That's my feeling. I think we can certainly revisit it next year, see, once we know what's going on as far as, because we really don't know how many people, what percentage is going to use the Chromebooks, but for now, I'm perfectly comfortable with the $50 fee.
Can I just say one last thing as a summary? I think the part of the other way I'm thinking about this is purely efficiency. 3 meetings ago, I brought up when we had the capital item to renew the Chromebooks. And the reason why I asked this question about what do we do with all these extra Chromebooks is purely on efficiency, that if we're buying enough Chromebooks to put one in the hands of every high school student, and then I just happen to know from knowing so many students that so many of them have these devices on their own too. So now we have a large percentage of these students who effectively are assigned 2 devices, one from the high school and then one that they have at home. So another reason for doing this is you're eventually scaling down so that the high school isn't duplicating the technology that exists out in the world. So just like the calculator analogy again, we're telling people that the expectation is that they have access to this technology. I think we should even maybe get away from the idea of calling it a fee, because it implies that it's being imposed on everybody. Now we're just trying to say, we're not trying to buy everyone a laptop if they already have access to one at home. So if you do not, and you would like us to provide you one, you have to pay $50 for it. But purely efficiency too, it just doesn't make sense for a school to be burning through devices every 4 years and trashing them into the, landfills, if at home you've got a laptop that you're using for 6 years and then sending to the landfills as well. So purely on efficiency, trying to minimize the number of devices that the town is purchasing just to have in existence. I think, this is accomplishing that as well.
How would we feel about starting with a $25 fee, recognizing that we have never lowered a fee? We've previously set we've never brought a fee down, at least in recent history. With that in mind, how would we feel about a $25 fee, which would be more than sufficient to cover a 75% participation rate, but not 100% participation rate?
Personally, the problem I have with that is that it won't create the incentive.
Right.
I personally don't think it will create the incentive. I'm not even convinced that $50 will, but
Right.
I'm willing to try $50 and not $100, or not the cost of the device divided by 4 per year.
Right.
Whatever that would be. So, that's why I would support the $50, and with the caveat that I am very curious to see exactly how the marketplace reacts to this type of modeling. We don't know, and we won't know until we actually get it on the ground and see where the dollars go, or where the decision points are made.
So next year, if maybe there is a 100% participation rate, there are lots of replacement costs, and we do need the $50 fee. Maybe that happens. I would love to see a report at the end of the next school year, so not this time next school year, but at the end of the next school year, or a presentation, looking at what the actual costs within the system were, and seeing whether or not we could lower that fee. And if not,
I think I'll give you a question lower, and it would be eliminated. The goal would be to eliminate it. If we get the community shows us that they're like, wow, of course we want our kid to have a device and we have no problem doing it, and then really it's just a question of us augmenting a very small percent, which we clearly could do inside the budget, then just get rid of the fee. you
Yeah,
know?
we would almost be out of the business of providing.
Right.
the
I was going to say, I have a general expectation, just with all of our other fees, they're revisited annually and they're brought to us for approval.
With an analysis of exactly what the contribution is and you know, what the percentages are, participation, all that kind of thing, I agree.
Mr. Chairman, can I just share the funding scenario for next year, and so you know what we're struggling with, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for this with the fee. At the $71,240, we've committed to try to find $24,000 within our operational budget to help pay for that first year. So that leaves us with $47,200. We have a capital outlay that we've requested of $32,500. So that leaves us with a differential of, or a delta of $14,740 that we're still short. If we collected that $50 fee and actually everybody paid it, that would give us $13,000, as Darrell pointed out. Realistically, a split of $5,000 for repairs and $7,000 perhaps to help get that $14,000 down would be appropriate. So if I add another $7,000 revenue from that, I have a shortfall of a little over $7,000. That's something we still need to find. I'm not worried about finding that, but I just wanted you to see the logic that we're trying to use to make this happen as well.
The Chromebooks aren't going to be purchased until people sign up for it, right? So we will know going into this, and then I assume there'll be some marketing. There's a couple ways to massage this in public, which is you can message it as we're buying everyone a Chromebook unless you opt out, or the vice versa, which is there's a new technology requirement that'll be implemented next year. There's an opt-in program for these Chromebooks. I'm really skeptical that the 71,000 or whatever that number is, my guess is that it's going to come well underneath that when people are left with the decision of either purchasing a $50 a year for 4 years versus going out and buying something on their own. I'm skeptical that we're going to get close to that.
But given the budgeting process, we have to put those wedges in now, and then, like you said, if you're floating $7,000 worth of risk, in the operating budget, that we're gambling, that's what the number's going to come in at.
It's a brand new initiative, so there's just no historical context. We're able to see exactly how this is going to shake out. We will certainly in 2 to 3 years, and then year by year we'll be able to get a much better grasp. And then at that point, I think we can revisit it, and hopefully, optimistically, with the idea that we got there and just let's stop this.
And if the $71,000 is something that we're worrying about, there was the option 2 rollout, which involves just the 10th grade and then, or either just the 10th grade or just the 9th grade. We decided we didn't like that. That wasn't the ideal. I agree that that's not the ideal. I prefer to do 9th and 10th in the same year. But if the $71,000 is looking like an issue, or if local aid comes in lower than whatever happens, I think we should keep that in mind.
I'm leaning towards, at the recent selectmen's meeting there, they were talking about unexpected realization of new growth from the commercial side this year, which they're going to hopefully be able to use to stabilize the capital versus decreasing the capital budgets, as was part of the plan with trying to keep certain things inside the levy here. So probably deferring it is only going to get us into a situation where the capital funds may be tighter within the town there, because so I think we've got to balance that part out. That's why I really appreciate the multi-year projection like this. The only part that's a little confusing is the red 142 versus the black 103, because I don't know what number we're asking for, across the bottom.
Sure. I can explain that. The 103 really didn't support the 9 and 10 approach to implementation, so it went up to 143. But we're not. What we don't want to do, Darrell, is we're trying our hardest to stabilize our requests for technology over time for capital. So Steve and I were committed to try to keep that as close to 103 as we can. And we have a little bit of flexibility, but you've heard me speak about this numerous times, if we can create a steady amount in some of our budget lines for what we need from year to year, it does stabilize the budget, and it helps us go into budget discussions from year to year with firmer numbers as well.
Yes. So.
All right, any further discussion?
Just one final thing, maybe. So the concept of fees there, I know we haven't revisited all of our other fees because they haven't come before us for approval for next year at this point. Are we in a position that if we implement this fee here, can we still maintain a freeze in our other fees?
At Budget Subcommittee, I don't think any of us has contemplated raising the other fees. Well, do we talk about raising the activity fee? Because
we're doing a study on that now, and
we're not raising it, but charging for multiple, if kids participate in multiple with a cap, the way we do it with athletics.
So we are considering that, but that may be something we need to put on the back burner. What Steve has found out when I asked him to do some research, and I don't want to talk for you, Steve, but there is an inequity when we look at the ratio of contribution to extracurriculars as opposed to, or as compared more correctly to athletics.
Yep.
And we're really behind in the co-curriculars in terms of the costs and what we're collecting. So there's something that we'll bring to you when we have it firmed up, and it may not be the year to address it. You know, it's something that you need to know as a subcommittee. There is a disparity.
What I guess I'm going to ask maybe as a concept here is, can we commit to freezing the other fees as part of the, if the decision is to adopt this fee, can we commit to freezing the other fees?
I mean, I think that the only one that we would be contemplating is the activity fee, and not because we think it's too low, we think because it's an equity issue, and I personally am fine with us just analyzing it and thinking about it, and we don't need to act on it, because it's not going to change the bottom line in terms of the budgeting process. Even if we did go to a model that was closer to what we implement on the athletic fee side, it's really only as an equity thing. It's not going to change materially how much we collect for activities. And I'm fine personally with not worrying about it this year.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm asking that is I think it signals also our sensitivity towards the other fees that we're charging.
I appreciate that, and we're really arguing on the margins. I mean, none of us is really all that happy about this in terms of, if we think about it strictly as we need to do this in order to make the program financially viable relative to all the other things that we want to do. None of us is really, jumping up and down saying, wow, why not? Well, let's do it.
Right. The reason why I would say, I think you and I are on the exact same page with the logic behind that, but I think that the expectation should always be that anytime we institute a fee or raise it, it should be only because it's absolutely required. So by making a commitment not to raise the fees any further, it almost makes it seem like we would do it.
No, I guess
anything
I
other
could
than
phrase it
just
slightly different. Could I request that the budget subcommittee present a budget that does not show an increase in fees?
That was right now, I would say that was our
That's what we,
intent.
that's
Well, no,
sort of what we're working on.
and
We're gonna go ahead
my
and
preference.
Not already intending to do.
Well, no,
I know, I appreciate it. Yeah.
And you're asking for an actual commitment
Yeah,
instead.
I'm just saying,
Yes,
yeah,
well, no,
we'll do it.
I would say
We're gonna
is
do it
the
anyway. So
direction,
it's nothing-
as a committee, direction
not a
to the,
sacrifice on our part.
direction to the budget preparation process is the first budget presented should not show an increase in other fees there.
Yeah.
And then if you do come back with a budget that increases them, I think you're already getting my signal. I'm not very supportive of that.
I think you find some
That is our
guidance
budget
there.
model.
Well, no, but I think it's just important for us to actually state that as a guided direction.
And I'm sure you realize this, I just want to make sure, I'm just going to say it because I need to. Every year, we do absorb more in our operational budget because of increased costs. And so you see that dependency increase. And we know that, but I just want to make sure that's to the forefront as we move forward. Our intent wasn't to bring any other fee increase. In fact, our intent is to decrease the full-day kindergarten costs for next year. So we are moving in the right direction in one area of our district.
And then I think, I had shared some of the budget presentation recommendations, from the MASC conference, and I think one of those things is, again, it would probably help in terms of projecting those out in terms of part of the public presentation of where we're actively doing those absorptions, because at some point we can't. And the selectmen and the finance committee need to be aware of that, as well as the public, because, and I think I'll get to it when we talk about the enrollment things there. I have a bunch of concerns, but that's a different discussion.
And I think it's a great point, because going through that exercise, we should be able to show year by year what the level of subsidization is, and it's going down without being able to quantify it. Obviously, our spending on stuff is going up. Athletics, primarily, transportation, certainly though that gets fixed because it's a contract. But every year, each 3 years we renew the contract, it doesn't go down; it goes up. But it would be good to see that trend so that we can use that as part of the debate when we are talking to the selectmen and FinCom and through them, to the town. So it's a very good point, and we should make sure we talk about that at Budget Subcommittee, which we'll do. I would like to entertain two motions on this. I would like an initial motion to support, if anybody's inclined to make a motion to support the one-on-one program, and then I would like a second motion on whether or not we think the fee is appropriate.
Let me just jot it down here, and I'll make those motions. Okay. All right. I'd make a motion to the school committee to support the administration's recommendation of a one-to-one program to be introduced at the high school.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Okay. Make sure I get this one right. I make a motion to approve a $50 technology fee for grades 9 and 10 next year in support of the one-to-one Chromebook program.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Just as a point of clarification, I appreciate the fact that you put in there the 9th and 10th grade. That will require us to revisit it next year when we go into, when the next classes come in.
Yeah, I guess I'm going with the philosophy, we'll revisit the fees every year, and that would be a new fee, and we would
appreciate you
have that.
doing it that way. I think that makes it easier for all of us, and it signals that we will clearly follow through on it. We'll have to.
You have to, because I only made the motion for.
I've got a question. Is there any appetite, tell me if I'm just being naive by saying this, should the motion, I'm wondering, should the previous motion have read institute new technology requirements, and have this motion read, instead of instituting a technology fee, say that the school committee supports providing devices at the cost of $50 to meet the technology needs, because it's not going to be for it's not a fee for everybody. It's not a technology fee for everybody.
It's a technology fee for the one-on-one program.
Right. I'm just thinking of phraseology, if it's more digestible for people, if it's phrased as offering subsidized technology versus.
I guess I wasn't concerned about the how we implemented it, and I wasn't specifying whether we implemented it that way. I'm just making it so that we are authorizing the fee to be assigned and collected by the administration.
I think our discussion
flesh that out.
Yeah, exactly, and it's public record,
Yeah.
so, and
All right,
we're certainly accessible and open to explaining it further if it is raised in the community.
And I think I got the language right to indicate that we are approving the fee and its collection.
Yep. Fine with me.
There, so.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for staying.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to new business. It's January 17, school district enrollment.
I enclosed the enrollment in your package, just so you had a point of reference as we were discussing capacity of our schools. As I mentioned before, we wanted to do this so that it gave you good information, and every other method of doing this just, it didn't have the validity levels that we were looking for. So we looked at our current structure, which is the best way to baseline, and then see what we could do to augment that baseline if we needed to, having more students move in. But having said that, I did an analysis of Russell Street and Shaker Lane in the last 5 years in terms of population increases. And for both schools combined, and it fluctuates from year to year, but if I go from one end to the other, we had an increase of 25 students over a 5-year period.
Between both buildings?
Yeah, so, I mean, we do have transiency with people moving away and obviously students graduating. So I wanted to put that out there. So over a 5-year period, that's 5 students a year. So it's important to know that. And what we're facing in the future, we'll keep on top of it, but our predictability levels will hopefully continue to hold. So, having said that, I'm going to ask the principals to talk about their schools, and I'm going to ask Rich.
Actually, can I hold on? I just want to have one conversation about this, and then I want to make a suggestion relative to the next item on the agenda, and then we'll see where we end up. So I'm looking at this year by year, and, we're clearly over 100 kids per grade. But what I'm seeing is that right now, the highest grade we have is 3rd grade at Russell Street, which is 134. And then the second, and then 135 in 5th grade. And then at the high school, I see our 9th grade is 123. That 9th grade was the grade that came in at 140 kids in kindergarten.
Right. That's
Which
right.
was aberrational at the time, but which we absorbed and managed. And right now, what I'm seeing is nothing in the trend that I see is going to get us there right now. We're getting closer, but we're not over, and we're not going to be over for at least a little while. So that was just my own quick analysis of that, the trend that I saw just with my eyeballs, just looking at this, when we got it.
Yeah, I got some other things, but I'll wait after the presentation, because I want to follow up on the trends. And
all right, well, so this is a question I have about that. So I took a look at the school enrollment information that we have in our packet, and it's a lot of stuff to think about. What is the appetite for the committee to just kind of take this back, let us all take a look at it individually, and get it towards the front of the agenda at another meeting where we can have a more robust discussion than I think we're going to struggle to have at 9:13 this evening?
So I'm supportive of that, and then if you wouldn't mind entertaining just a little bit of, because I did take a quick look at it, and I developed some questions, because I think that, I hate to say it, there's a little bit more data.
Well, that's kind of, that would be great, because maybe that would, then what would happen is we can give them some initial feedback, very high level, ask them to take another look at this and come back with maybe a little different and a little more valid analysis that will inform our discussion when we go to have it.
So, all right, so what I noticed over from 14 to 15 to 16, just using the October 1st dates there, I think you could just use it right off of here, right? We went up like about 30 students this year. It looks like we went up about 20. People can do the math to the right decimal place there. If I start looking back, 15 Great Road with the 3 big apartment complex buildings just came online last year. So we absorbed some amount of students from them. 20 of the 40B houses were built out. McIntosh Lane, right across the street from me, probably about half of it was built out during that time. I looked briefly at the planning board, and I think there's probably like 4 more housing developments underway. Some are not started yet, some are probably halfway through construction. Could we get some kind of estimate on occupancy permits that were issued over the last couple of years? And then how many pending houses we have built, so that we can get a feel. So we added a lot of housing capacity, and we saw 20 students a year increase. So are we going to be adding about that many more houses over the next couple of years? Just to get a feel for.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Be cautious with the number, because that's inclusive of school choice.
Yeah, well, that's going to come back to the second part of my follow-up here on it. But I'm just trying to get a feel where we've added a lot of housing stock in the town over the last few years. I know even in the neighborhood across from me, there's a lot of young ones, but I also count my kids and others are gonna start rolling out. So I don't know what the net effect of this is, but we do have 2 years, 3 years worth of data for the current housing developments that just went in, that we might wanna try to take advantage of that.
And before you go on, so given the point you just made, Kelly, about school choice, can we break that out, what the growth is in these numbers of non-school choice versus school choice?
Yeah, we can, yeah, we'll just, yeah, what we'll have to do is do a fixed data point.
Yeah.
And base everything on that fixed
Correct.
data point, because it would fluctuate
Yeah, that's
from month
fine.
to month. So that's what we could do.
Because that's important, that's a really, because it's not apples and oranges.
Right.
You know, it's-
We can do that.
Yeah,
one's
because I think
growing
as
because we choose to grow it, one's growing because we don't have control over it.
Right, and then it factors in, I think, a little bit, maybe it will be for our discussion afterwards there, in terms of trying to understand the capacity of our current schools, how many school choice slots we've been offering, what point do we have to stop offering them to absorb our native capacity?
Right.
Then, there's a financial part of it, you know, we added 20 students, our increase to our current students, and because of that increase, only resulted in $31,000, you know. So we could say that, you know, we will probably see less than $1,000 a student coming in for Chapter 70, you know, over time here. What do we receive for school choice funds per student?
$5,500.
Right. So every school choice slot we eliminate in order to house our native thing here, we have, you know, so there's a significant financial impact that goes along with the capacity piece here. Because every one of those school choice ones we pinch out, we have to absorb another $4,500 into our operating budget. There. And I think, again, we need to make sure that when we present this stuff to the broader community and the selectmen, they see that picture there. Because it's not clear that we need more classroom space, because it's going to be hard to squeeze one more room in each of the 4 buildings.
Very hard.
We're going to have to, I jump into a conclusion, but I think we're going to have to start squeezing out the school choice kids. And
Yes.
there is a significant budget impact that's going to happen on that.
Or you're going to reach the tipping point where it becomes not just solely from programming point of view in terms of delivering education in with the right resources, i.e. physical resources, classrooms, but also it might make sense because you can actually keep your current enrollment of school choice and maybe even augment it because you have more physical capacity.
Yeah. So-
You know, so it's going to be a very nuanced
Yeah, so
analysis.
I just wanted to bring those up
Modeling
so that if they go back and think about some other things here, they maybe already have a hint as where I'm going to drive some of the questions.
Yeah. That's a great point, Mike. In Massachusetts, the school choice amount is much less than I'm used to. It's everywhere else I've been, every state I've been in, it's the actual average cost educated student within the state. So it'd be about 14,000 here. So when districts that I've been in before are faced with growing enrollments, we always kept the school choice because it was a revenue source we were dependent on, and it really didn't make fiscal sense to start squeezing them out. What we did is they elected to put more portables around the schools until we were approved for building. So, I mean, those are all conversations that we need to have as we move forward.
Yeah. But I just think before we talk about buildings and portable classrooms, those are all have to be factored in because none of those come cheap.
No. Not only solely on the financial cost, but the impact on the district, both in terms of how we are able to, and then you build a building, you got to staff it, you know, and you know, we're having talks about assistant principals and things like that, so it becomes an overarching discussion.
Right, and then again, I think if I read through quickly there, we'll see that our needs are distributed across the district.
Yes.
It's not that one building need,
Correct.
you know, is
Correct.
there. So it will present a
Yeah,
significant
and even
challenge.
you look at the middle school, trying, because of the you know, the middle school model that they use, adding a classroom or a teacher doesn't really cut it either. It's a team type of concept you have to think about. So it's the elementary versus, you know, the secondary is interesting too.
I wanted to make 2 quick points. I know we're saving a larger discussion. First, that our budget proposal for this year really addresses some of, not the larger enrollment trend, but certainly, as Kelly said earlier, we are in a restorative budget right now, trying to restore some of the cuts we've had over the years. And our budget this year makes a really good dent in that by adding some classroom teachers at Russell Street, I believe at Shaker Lane. And
Specials.
Specials.
They're shared between the two
And then a
buildings.
classroom teacher at Russell Street. And I think that's really important that we've kept our eye on the ball on that, and I'm appreciative to the administration. So I saw this opportunity to say that, so I took it. And the other point I wanted to make is just before we alarm everyone about portable classrooms, there are years, we're years from having to pull a trigger on anything like that. We're just having a discussion now because we're being prudent stewards of the town and thinking years ahead, not next year or 2 years from now we're gonna, I don't anticipate that we're gonna be there in that point. But we want to be having a conversation now, so it doesn't come as a surprise if 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, we're saying, hey, now's the time.
All right. Any other points on that? I just appreciate the administration. I know this is a tricky thing to undertake, and I think it's a very good first pass, and it's already raised a few points about where we think we want to go to have this discussion. So I appreciate you making the effort. I know this is additive to what, usually we set our buildings and we're good to go for decades, and maybe now we don't have that luxury and we have to think about this. So I appreciate you guys taking that on, and we're going to require that we kind of keep our eye on the ball on this until we get it clean, see where we think we're going to go.
Because the other part that's in there is as Littleton finishes building out its housing stock, still the long-range projection over 20 years is that we're probably going to be decreasing in, school-age students.
Right.
Kinds of things there. So
right. Exactly. It's going to be very nuanced, and a lot of assumptions are going to be made, and we're going to do the best we can, but there will be assumptions. And when you get beyond that 3 to 5 year horizon, you do the best you can, but there's just no way of truly predicting.
And a positive is, I'd much rather be having these conversations about increased enrollments than decreased enrollments and downsizing. It's much a more pleasant conversation,
My
although
sister's
there are
on the school
challenges.
committee in Boxborough, and they have been wrestling with that for 5, 6 years now. And they fully regionalized. That was the answer they came up with. They had a fully regionalized. So you're right. It's a good problem to have, I guess, is the way to think about it. So.
It's a better problem.
Good. Relative. Exactly. It's a better problem. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, and we'll look forward to more data and a good conversation on that one. All right. The last item on new business is appoint a school committee member to the Shaker Lane Principal Search Committee. Who's up for that?
All depends on what it is.
Yeah, what's the timeline?
I was going to volunteer the new guy.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that over to John or John and Scott both. I guess we haven't even had a meeting yet. We've been just so busy with other things that are happening. But and John, please jump in. I was thinking sometime in February, early February, we'd put an ad out, and then 2 weeks after that, depending on the pool, we would assemble the team and start a process.
I can comment just a few words. You participated in the last search for the principal of the middle school, and Scott and I are very comfortable working with each other. We'll develop a timeline in concert with the superintendent and his direction, and follow it as swiftly as possible to get the best candidate that we can for the position. So there'll be a timeline that will be generated and shared publicly with the community and the Shaker Lane parents in particular. And of course, we'll be consulting with Rich for his advice and sage words as we look.
Sounds old.
Timeless.
And as we look to have an effective process, but also an expedient one.
Great. What time do you anticipate the meetings to be when we go through this? Is it usually like a 4 o'clock type thing, 3 o'clock?
It's interesting because we had summertime. We were on summertime last time, so it's a little bit different. So we'll have to figure out what works best for folks, because we also want to have faculty participation from Shaker Lane. So we want to make sure it works well for that. But we also want people. We have to also acknowledge that people come back from work. It's not unusual to have late afternoon into early evening, but not going until too late of an evening for.
But not during the school day, not during.
No, probably not, because we want to be able to free up the teachers when they're, during the day without having to get the substitutes and things.
It's just too costly a venture and to try to do it during the day, and it's really not fair to the composition of the team, because, we're involving parents and.
So given that full-time job that goes beyond 3 o'clock.
My guess.
2 guys in Boston.
5, 6 o'clock.
And I'm the chairman, so I refuse to do it.
If it's early afternoon,
I mean,
early evening.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with it if that's.
All right. You guys okay with Matt doing it? Let's assume that Matt's gonna do it, and if it, for some reason it's just not gonna work, then we'll revisit it.
Yeah, I'll take it if you can't, if you don't think you can do it. I guess it would be.
And I could make it work too, but I also think that, Matt, you're probably more familiar with Shaker Lane now than the last time I was a student there.
Right.
Because you have kids who are younger than me.
Right. My daughter's last year, so.
So I
it's
think
my
that-
last year with a Shaker Lane student.
What would be the best start time for you, Matt?
I typically can be there by 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for volunteering.
You're welcome.
No, thank you.
All right, that's great. Anything else on the new business?
That's it.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think we need a vote, do we?
No, the chairman can.
Okay.
All right, we're at the second point where any interested citizens can come before the school committee.
Why not? I'm the only one here.
Do you mind coming up and just using the microphone, Amy, so that the television viewers will be able to hear you clearly?
So I'm sort of interested in the Chromebook program.
Sorry, just quickly, because we know who you are. but
You know,
not everyone knows who you are.
I'm famous, I know. Amy Tarla Lewis. I'm at Omega Way here in Littleton, and so I definitely support the Chromebook program. But I definitely believe public education should be free and should remain free. I think we all know how many costs all the families, all the costs from the beginning of the school year to athletic fees, and my kids are young. We still do all those parties during the year, and you have to contribute to those, and on it kind of goes. I just actually wanted to learn more about what you're going to do for families who can't even afford the $50 fee. I just wanted to know more about that.
If a family falls under a category called free and reduced, there will not be a fee.
Okay.
But generally speaking, the whatever fee we charge, and whether it's field trips or the Washington DC trip, no child is ever denied the opportunity to participate in a program or have access to a resource. We will make it work. So
Exactly.
we have a great community. Nobody would really take advantage of that. We don't worry about that.
And we have generous donors that contact us to help us out as well, so.
And again, I'm hoping, and I think based on the discussion we had, that this will be a fairly short thing, and it might just go away and not be an issue. Having said that, the points you're raising are perfectly valid when we talk about, as Darryl did, about we just need to think about how our fees are impacting the families and the benefit. Is it worth, what we're getting, what we have to do?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if the state steps up, we'd be more than happy to get rid of them as fast as
Yeah,
we
I mean,
can.
because if I had the choice between going out into the free market and buying a Chromebook or buying one for a much reduced price, I would totally buy one from the school. If it was $50 versus $250, I would just do that. And my other question is, and I don't know if it's a question you can answer or not, but I know we talked about internet access. I don't know if maybe this would be under the purview of the Board of Selectmen, but if they could renegotiate the cable contracts to provide any citizen town the opportunity to have free internet access. I don't know if that's a real idea or a possibility or really under their purview or.
At one time, I thought there was parts of some of the contract stipulations about the cable companies offering, again, I think it's similar to the people that qualify for free and reduced lunch program there. I don't know. You've
I
got more.
believe that program is still available. I don't have the
But
details,
it's not a
but I think it's still
general
available.
to everybody. It's to address the people that can't, that can't afford it.
It's still available. Yeah. And we have that information at each of our schools to, help parents out that may need access to that program.
In one part of the discussion on the one-on-one program that we had, really, I think the first time we had a presentation on it, one of the things that, as a school committee, that we were asking for was there needs to be a significant amount of community outreach about how we expect this program to work and the benefits of it. and the parents need to be fully educated on what we're striving for and what their options are, and that would certainly be one of the things. Like, obviously, if you don't have, because some families might decide that they just don't want to do it. They just, for the way they want to live their lives, they don't want internet access at their house. And that's fine, but then they need to know that, well, there's time after school, the library has one, there are other access points around town. So if your student feels like he or she needs to get it, you can do that. And then if you feel it's a cost issue, then there are programs available and we can make it work. So I'm hoping that the administration takes that comment, that education and outreach needs to be very proactive and sustainable over the course of the program, which is hopefully going to go on for years. But we can't assume that families are just going to figure this all out for themselves. And more importantly, we can't assume that they're going to get the full benefit of doing this without us constantly, reminding them how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And then sometimes I'm a little behind on information. I just wanted to say that I really support full-day kindergarten. I think that's important. I don't know if the plan was to let people opt in or opt out. I know some families don't think their child is ready for full day, but I definitely...
We can't make full-day kindergarten mandatory, whether it's fee-based or non-fee-based, because it's just not part of the charter of public education in Massachusetts at this point, so that won't change. What we're hoping to do is make it tuition-free as we phase it in over 3 years. That's what the budget, but in terms of how the program is offered to the families, that's not really going to change significantly. They don't have the option of participating or not participating.
Okay. And then the third issue, something a little bit of a departure from the normal. So I'm definitely very concerned about national politics these days and the rise of hate crimes in other communities. I don't think we've had any here. But I'm wondering if, A, we have any refugee families in our community, and like what your plan is if something were to happen. Like, are you ready? Are you prepared? Like if something should happen, like what would you do to support these families?
That's a great question, because it's on everybody's mind, special educational leaders as well. And we do have, in terms of education, of celebration of diversity, we're really moving fast in the area of social and emotional learning and working with staff, offering professional development. All the administrators are looking for indicators of success in the classrooms. We also have an emergency response team that is made up of chief of police, the fire chief, and some key staff within the district. So we keep as up to date as we can, and we're always training. We're not. We've never once sat around and said to each other we're where we need to be. So we are cognizant of those things, and we do have a pretty good pulse. School committee acts as ambassadors, and they have a good pulse of what's happening in the communities. Parents are very good in terms of coming forward and letting us know if there's some potential issues percolating in the community. So we feel that we're in a good spot at this point in time, but that's a great point to bring up, because...
But to the point, I don't think at the moment we have any particular families that we would identify as being more worried about than we otherwise would have been several months ago.
We don't have any really. As a board, that's not our purview as the individuals. That's handled by the administration there.
But we are confident that they are cognizant of it and the framework is in place. Hopefully they'll never need to get it, implemented.
That's like the plan you never want to use, right?
Exactly.
Right. Because, and again, since it's for the safety committee, and those are all the types of things that, from the foundational safety committees to the emergency plans to the response plans that the superintendent outlined is sort of how it's handled internally there on it. And I think we are in a pretty good position.
I feel we are. Yes.
The one thing that Kelly didn't mention that I think is a strong asset for the district is we do have, whether we call it the student support team or something else, we have a group of professionals at each school who, if a student is in crisis for whatever reason, death in the family, things of that nature, they're ready, they do that work often, and when they're alerted to it, there was a situation after over break, and I was happy to hear that some of our administrators were in action over break, over the holidays. They reached out and they showed support for the families who were in crisis. So that sort of because we're a small community, I think we're better situated to hear about these sorts of things, and when we hear about these sorts of things, at least in the more traditional types of crises that students and families can go through, I think we've been pretty cognizant of our need to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm just very concerned about the rise of bigotry in this country.
There was a report a couple days ago that issues of school violence, school-based violence nationwide were up. There's a big uptick since November, and so I think that's something, I know we've spoken offline about that. Something we have to be aware of and be cognizant about.
Well, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I had a real quick question. How many free and reduced lunch students do we have at the high school? Do we know, ballpark?
We didn't, I mean, I have access to the data, but I don't carry it in the top of my head.
Yeah.
Obviously. I do know that if I look at the current grade 8s and 9s, because of the one in the laptop program, we are running 14% in those two classes, and that may be a little bit of an anomaly. As a district, we've been typically running between 7 and 8%.
Well, that's for economically disadvantaged, not for low and, or are the numbers the same? Because the low...
We only track free and reduced.
Okay.
By state requirement, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Subcommittee reports, PMBC?
Things continue along. I guess the main thing, it looked like, at least the numbers that we presented looked like they were rolled into Bonnie's latest budget projection for PMBC. So the numbers that we recommended were put into the budget placeholders for those school projects. So, whether they're funded or not, but I mean, that will cycle. Nobody pulled any of the projects off during the budget input process, so that was good.
I welcome change.
All right, that it?
Yep.
Thank you.
Budget subcommittee, really, we're just waiting to kind of keep the process rolling. We are going to take a look, Darrell, at the information you brought back from the MASC conference on presenting budgets as we get ready to kind of start to flesh it out. We have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom on February 7th at 7:30. Is that a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tuesday. So many of us that can be available.
Timing is 7:30?
7:30, yeah. It's usually 7, but they pushed it back a half an hour a couple days ago.
So don't push it up.
I did get a text from our two liaisons with the FinCom this year, are Gary Wilson and Greg Schcmte. And they've had, after we gave our initial budget forecast at the budget summit, they have had a chance to sit down and talk that over with the FinCom and with the town finance admin team, and they want to sit down and have another meeting about that. So that will happen before the February 7th meeting.
So February 3rd is our next budget.
Yeah, we haven't
subcommittee
scheduled it yet, but I will do that. So that'll happen, and then the 2/7 joint meeting, and hopefully we'll start to get some information about what the projections for funding the overall town budget are and where we fit into that. So that's where we are in that process. All right. Policy subcommittee?
Same policy as last time. I know that I need to update that date. Darrell, I just wanted to head you off there. I did appreciate it. I have just been doing so many other things that I haven't had a Christmas break yet between the last two readings. So by the time we present it for a third reading, it'll have those changes in there.
Actually, we only do 2 readings.
We only do 2 readings.
Ah.
This is
This is the legislature.
I'm so used to 3 readings.
We get stuff done.
All right, then,
We're 30% more effective, efficient.
we're at least 30%
At
more
least
efficient. If it's okay, then I would, could we postpone these? Just so that because I do want to make sure that date is accurate.
Yep, sure, that's fine.
And then we'll just loop them into the next round.
Sure. Good.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
And we're going to
We're
postpone
gonna
the
We're not
policies
going to take
for
any
now.
motion on the, no motion on the
So-
second reading of the review policies.
To correct a minor clerical error.
We will require, are we going to go into executive session?
I don't have anything unless
Okay.
you do.
I don't. Do you guys have any questions? We haven't met with them since the last time we talked about it,
No,
so.
it does sound like there's need
So then we
to.
don't need an executive session. Do we have any other business? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, OCTV.